Please take your seats. The meeting is about to begin. Please stand by. We are going on air in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good morning and welcome to the September 3rd meeting of the Design Review Board. We have a full quorum today, as well as a fairly long agenda, so I'm going to get right to it and turn it over to the city attorney.
Thank you. Good morning, all. Today's meeting of the Design Review Board has been scheduled in a hybrid format with a quorum of the board physically present in the commission chambers at City Hall and applicants, staff, and members of the public appearing either in person or virtually via the Zoom platform webinar. Those wishing to participate in today's meeting via the Zoom platform webinar may dial 888-475-4499. I'll do that again, 888-475-4499, which is a toll-free number, and enter the webinar ID, which is 822-739-1924, or log into the Zoom app and enter the webinar ID, which again is 822-7394-1924. Any individual wishing to speak on an item must click the raise hand icon if they are using the Zoom app, or dial *9 if they are participating by phone. Before I swear in those that are testifying today, I'm going to read into the record the city's notice regarding lobbyist registration. If you are appearing on behalf of a business, a corporation, or another person, you need to register as a lobbyist with the city clerk's office. If you haven't registered yet, you should register before speaking to the board. You do not have to register as a lobbyist if you are speaking only on your behalf and not any other party, or if you are testifying as an expert witness providing only scientific, technical, or other specialized information or testimony in this public meeting, or if you are appearing as a representative of a neighborhood association without any compensation or reimbursement for your appearance to express support of or opposition to any item. Expert witnesses and representatives of neighborhood associations shall, prior to appearing, disclose in writing to the city clerk their name, address, and the principal on whose behalf they are communicating. If you are an architect, attorney, or employee representing an applicant or an objector, you must register as a lobbyist. These rules apply whether you are appearing in favor of or against an item, or encouraging or arguing against its passage, defeat, modification, or for a continuance. For those that are going to be testifying today, if you could please stand so I could administer the oath and raise your right hand. Okay, anyone else going to be testifying? Thank you. Okay, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you'll be giving in this proceeding is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you, and please be seated. And with that, Madam Chair, I'll turn it back to you.
Now moving on to discussion, Rogelio.
Okay, so first, I just want to confirm we do have a quorum. We have 6 members present, so we have a full board. I did want to make an announcement that item number 4 on the agenda, which is DRB 23-0958, that's for 428 South Hibiscus Drive, has been withdrawn by the applicant. So that will not be heard today in case you're online expecting to hear that item. Also, DRB 24-1014, that's 4 to 6 Star Island Drive. That was already listed as a request for continuance. The item is requested to be continued indefinitely, so no action is necessary. We'll renotice it to the public once the item is ready to move forward, and that's as a result of changes that the applicant wishes to make to the design of the home. So with that, we can go ahead and proceed to the first item.
Do we have to do the approval of the minutes?
Yep.
Yeah.
If we have a motion in a second.
I'll second.
Somebody needs to make a motion. Oh,
Okay.
Oh, there we go. Motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, Ms. Lewin, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Diffenderfer, all those in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Motion passes. Okay. And then I guess we can proceed to item number 3 on the agenda. Giselle, if you want to read that in.
The first item of the agenda is DRB 23-0968, Citywide Digital Information Kiosk. An application has been filed requesting design review approval for the design of a digital information kiosk to be installed within the right-of-way at the following approximate locations: Convention Center Drive and 19th Street, and Lincoln Road and Alton Road. This was continued from April 2nd, 2024, June 4th, and June 2nd meeting.
Okay, so this item came about as a result of a request for proposals issued by the Mayor and City Commission back in 2022 for digital information kiosks. These are becoming more common in cities throughout the world. Basically, this will be a 8-foot, 3.5-inch tall by 3-foot, 3.5-inch wide, with just over a foot of depth, digital kiosk that will provide people will be able to walk up to it and it will be interactive. They'll be able to use the screen to get information on restaurants, on other information in the vicinity. It will offer free Wi-Fi, which is very helpful for tourists that may not have cell service in the United States. It has an emergency call system and a whole range of other services that are provided for it. When it's not in use, it can display city messaging, and it does display some advertising, which is what funds the cost of the system. The kiosk will be in a gray color, have the street name on top, and a wave pattern on the side. We'll see a description from the applicant. There are only 2 locations outside of the historic district. Giselle mentioned those addresses. One is in front of the convention center, another one's on Alton Road and Lincoln Road. There are several more in the historic districts. I believe there's 11 in the historic district, so only a few will be outside of the historic districts, which are the 2 that we're considering today. And staff recommends that the item be approved, subject to the conditions in the attached draft order.
And before we start, are there any ex parte disclosures at this time? No, thank you.
All right. Is the microphone on? Yes? So good morning, Madam Chair, Board Member Staff, Michael Larkin, 200 South Biscayne Boulevard, here today representing the applicant. And I do hope everyone had a great summer. I know I did. I had some fun summer vacations, but now back to the grind. I'm here today with Gibran Marissa from the applicant. Also, our architect, William Lane, who is famous for his lifeguard stands, among other things, and his lengthy, substantial career here on the beach and other cities. And last but not least, my colleague, Emily Balter. We appreciate the opportunity to present to you all today to tell you about the company history and why they believe that they are adding such great value here to Miami Beach. The application was scheduled to go to you all many months ago, but we decided to take a step back and do significant community outreach to stakeholders, neighbors, and we've done that in advance of our meeting with you today. The design of the kiosk has changed substantially since it was first shown to the Historic Preservation Board, and now to you all. We hope that you all appreciate the design and William Lane's intent. He was not a member of the original design team, but after getting constructive advice from board members and city staff, we added Bill, and I could not be happier with the result. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Gibran and have him talk to you about the company history and other things. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Gibran Sher Mohammed. I'm Vice President of Business Development for Ike Smart City. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, staff, and Michael for having me here today. Excited to show you our project. So Ike was founded 8 years ago with the intention of developing the most innovative and effective city communication platform in the country. We've now installed in over 20 cities across the nation, installing in 5 additional ones in the next 8 months, including many cities in South Florida. To give you a sense of how the project works, you walk up to the screen and you tap it and it unlocks. And it reveals a series of applications that help you figure out where to eat and drink, where to shop, where to play, where to stay, how to navigate to the destination that you've selected, where to find food aid, addiction recovery resources, and other services that the city offers. When you select eat and drink, instead of organizing based on whoever is able to pay for elevated placement, like what happens normally on search engines or mapping options on your phone, you select eat and drink, and it organizes based on proximity. So all of the options that are presented to you are the ones that are in immediate proximity to you. No company, no business is able to pay for elevated placement. So when you're walking around Miami Beach, the best coffee shop isn't always Starbucks and the best sandwich shop isn't always Panera, even though those are great options. The intention is to help people that are trying to discover the city find your local gems and the things that make your city truly unique. We've also been working closely with the Lincoln Road Bid, the business associations across the city to make sure that not only are the local businesses being featured on the kiosk, but that we're showing content that makes those local businesses feel shown in the light that they would like. For instance, the photos of the businesses are going to be the ones that reflect the most recent inventory. If they have coupons, if they have other promotions that they want to serve on the kiosk, new business hours are all going to be available, again, updatable in real time. Once you select where to eat and drink, let's see here. Once you select where to eat and drink, you'll have the option to select to route a destination, a trip plan to get to that destination. It'll aggregate all of the public transit options available and will aggregate micro transit options available. So for example, it may say take the bus 3 blocks, and then from that destination, there's a bike share station with 3 bikes available at the dock. And then you can select one of the bikes, and then it'll say take this bike the last 2 blocks, and there's a docking station that's empty. And you can dock your bike at that destination as well. So giving you real-time information on how to use all of the various public transit options available in the city. Also, the kiosk has a security camera on the top and has a light sensor next to that security camera. As a result, the light sensor picks up ambient light conditions and dims the kiosk according to light conditions, so that the kiosk is never going to be brighter than street lights or ambient light conditions in the environment. You also have an emergency call button on the spine that you can push. It'll dispatch emergency services. The emergency services will know exactly where you push that button from and will be able to come to you as you're there. As Michael pointed out, we worked closely with Mr. William Lane to revise the hardware and the kiosk cabinet to reflect the Miami Beach aesthetic. And I'd like to ask Mr. Lane to come and can show you what we've worked on together.
Good afternoon, or good morning, William Lane, architect. I was very excited to be brought into the team. As you see around the country, there's many of these, and typically they're black, they're very uniform, very monolithic. So when we were asked to do a different version that would be unique to Miami Beach, we looked at different things that might characterize the beach. And we have the very normal ones, which are cloud formations and the waves, but we also were looking at mid-century architecture, and we wanted to reflect the unique culture and support of great architecture that the city of Miami Beach is known for. And I think that was one of the intents with going back to actually thinking a little bit more about its form. So in doing this, we tried to make some simple things because we were asked to keep the basic functionality and size of the cabinet. So what we did was we did a very simple.
We're having a bit of technical difficulty. They're trying to upload the new rendering. If you might remember, this was the original design, and the team is working to upload the rendering that Mr. Lane worked on. So if you'll just give us one moment to resolve the technical issues.
Yeah, I don't know if you have maybe in front of you, images of the proposed, but we did a very simple move, which was to add a curved edge to one of the sides. The other one was to use a lighter metallic color than the black color that you typically see. Some of the references that we saw besides the mid-century and the clouds were also the outline of the island itself. On one side you have the beach line relatively straight, the other one, some of the buildups that we have along the west side. We really wanted to also look at this specifically as street furniture, rather than just being innocuous and blending into a more urban environment and larger cities. we saw the opportunity to add another element of whimsy where we saw the kiosk as street furniture and therefore kind of scaled to human use and the fact that it was an information element. So we wanted to also imbue it with a anthropomorphic feeling. So within the reading, there might be some nature, some references to the island, but also a little bit of a surrealism where we kind of imagined it as actually being something that spoke to you. The color, again, goes back to a more tropical city. We looked at, of course, the whiteness of a lot of the architecture here, but also some of the secondary elements, which is aluminum, a light-colored anodized aluminum. So all of them, we had done 2 for the historic district, which I'll get into later, but all of them have a continuous aluminum, clear aluminum band or stainless steel. And these, in a way, reference some of the older prototypes for the iPhone. So again, we saw it as like this kind of information feature. And in terms of color, I'm not sure if we're going to show the color one, but we did, we did go ahead and we did design maybe 3, 4 of them for the historic district. The silver one would be used predominantly in any other areas, but we wanted to pick up some of the history, that happened back in the 80s and 90s when Horowitz tried to bring out some of the importance of the Art Deco architecture by using pastels, tropical colors. These, later on, a lot of them went back to white, but they were a big influence. We saw turquoise and, as being kind of a watercolor, sky color, but also very popular. You see it on, buildings like the Eden Rock, pink, of course, flamingos, coral. So we wanted to add a little bit, another layer of humor and whimsy. So that's really, our moves. That was our design intent. Simple, but something unique to our city.
Thank you. You seem like you have something to add. If your time is up, but how much more time would you need?
Not a
Maybe
lot.
minute?
Available for questions. The one slide I wanted to make sure that we showed you was the various community organizations that we've met with, received feedback for. A critical element of the kiosk is that they're customizable on a per kiosk basis. And so we just wanted the board to know that we are working with organizations for each individual kiosk to make sure that they reflect the intent of that community where the kiosk is going to be located and available for questions. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That concludes our initial presentation. I'd like to reserve time for rebuttal, and we're here for your questions.
Great, thank you. Are there any members of the public wishing to speak?
Good morning, Madam Chair. Good morning, board members. My name is Annabelle Yopes. I'm the Executive Director at the Lincoln Road Bid, and I'm here just to show our support for the alternate Lincoln Road location that the digital kiosk will be located. We find this is going to be a great addition to the businesses to be able to promote themselves on there. So I just wanted to share that we've been working very closely with the team, and we're very excited for this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there anyone online?
We have no hands raised online.
Okay, then I'm now going to close the public portion and open it to the board for discussion. Who would like to begin?
I have a comment and a question. Thank you guys for the presentation. I guess my only question is, what kind of, if any, review process is in place for once these are installed and you can see how the community or how the businesses are either interacting successfully or how the technology part of it could or should be tweaked to be more engaging to the community? I'm just wondering if that part is planned.
Yes, we'll be providing the city a real-time dashboard that shows how the kiosk is being used. So what locations get interacted with most, for instance, if you want people to discover where to eat and drink, let's put that tile on the top left because it gets clicked the most. And then at each individual kiosk, what are people searching for the most? So you can make decisions based on what people are looking for at what location as you grow in the city. So we'll be providing usage data, we'll be providing dwell time, kind of all of the information the city could desire with respect to kiosk usage, and then making adjustments on the software based on that usage.
And actually, I was curious too about sort of, how the system works, the maintenance, et cetera. So it is your team is going to be maintaining and running it in conjunction with the city, but it's you guys as opposed to somebody at the city.
That's exactly right. Think of the city as a curator. We just take their direction, but we have a full maintenance team that cleans them every day. We have a full software development team that pushes out upgrades, and we have a city relationship management team that coordinates with the city regularly.
And how does, I know you said that with the search it comes up due to proximity, but how do businesses or organizations get included in the list?
There's a publicly available database that's generally very accurate with respect to all the businesses that are currently operational, but that's also why we work with groups like the Lincoln Road Bid to make sure that there isn't anybody slipping through the cracks. So we get this data and then we scrub it against the database of a local organization, Washington Road, Lincoln Road, et cetera.
And so to be included, does a business organization have to pay, or it's just based on location? This is considered a service to residents and visitors.
That's exactly right. Nobody can pay for placement or elevation. By function of existing, you are featured on the kiosk.
Can you also give us a sense, because first of all, I want to applaud your efforts both to interact with the community and to have this redesign that is very much in keeping with the spirit of the design of Miami Beach. Mr. Lane, I feel like in these meetings we've often referenced your lifeguard stands as a direction that we would love the city to continue to go with, everything from, bus benches to things like this. So thank you very much. It seems like you've done a lot of work, and this is indeed a much better design than when, had initially come to us all those months ago. Thank you for that. One of the things that I haven't been able to see in any of the presentations is what the screen will look like when it's not being used. Is it all, because in the presentation, whenever you show it from other cities, there's always an advertisement being shown. So I was curious about that. Is it always going to read as an ad? And also, is there going to be an easy way if there's something wrong with the screen or something, an easy way, like an easy number to call for a maintenance or for information or for help or something like that?
Sure. I'm happy to answer both those questions. Also, if we're able to activate screen share, I have a slide that shows, it not being interacted with, so you can see. When it's not being used, think of it as a screensaver on your computer. There's a slideshow. The slideshow contains 8 slides. Of those 8 slides, 1 slide at all times is reserved for city content. That can be road closure, it can be weather awareness, or it can be promotion for Dine Downtown or an artwork that the city wants to promote, a community artist. The other 7 slides are going to be programmed by us. We sell those slides to advertisers and share a portion of that revenue back with the city. But we also, when slides are not sold, we share that slide back with the city as well, or we find a local artist, pay for their artwork, and display their artwork on the screen. So the other 7 slides that are not the city slides are either going to contain advertisements, which we sell, artwork, which we source, or community content from groups like the Business Improvement District or the city. I have the slide. If somebody wants to enable screen share, I'm happy to show it to you.
Sure. And so what the sense I'm getting is that the majority of the time these screens are on, it's going to be displaying some sort of advertisement as a sort of a 7-to-1 ratio.
It's 7 to 1. So while the 7 slides are able to be sold by us, it is infrequent that all of those 7 slides are sold. It's very frequently the case that we have between 40 to 60% of the content that we have available to sell sold. And so between 40 to 60% of the time will be given back to the city for community content. If we are sold out, that means our rates are too low, right? So we're trying to keep our rates where national advertisers are buying them high enough, and so we're not selling out all of our slides.
And usually how long does it stay on each image?
Each slide is about 10 seconds.
Oh, okay, so it's constantly rotating.
And the slides aren't motion.
Right, they just come in and out.
Correct.
And then it goes or you said it stops at 10, or it goes, what are the hours of the sign?
It's on 24 hours a day, but it dims according to ambient light conditions. So for instance, at night, it is much more dim than it will be during the day when there's a full sunshine. Also, cloudy days, it's dimmer than sunny days.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I have one more question. When you were talking about the local businesses and organizations that you were working with, and you said that they've been invited feedback on collaboration on, is that what the screen looks like? Is that what you were saying, or was that to the color choice of the?
It's, and I'm trying to see if I have a slide of it here. It's on their application. So when you select eat and drink, right? If you don't mind allowing screen share again, please, thank you. So let's say you walk up and you select the eat and drink application. There will be a list of restaurants that are around you, restaurants and bars and coffee shops all around you. Let's say you see a coffee shop you want to go to and you select that coffee shop. There will be a photo of that coffee shop. There will be the store hours, there will be reviews, and a promotion if the coffee shop wants to put a promotion. That entire directory card, as I'm calling it, information about that coffee shop, is all content that the coffee shop can customize if they want us to customize on their behalf. And that's done as a service to the city. So it's not a cost to them, but it's a free way for them to get promotion, get more people to come in, put out promotion.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Can you briefly state the locations? They mentioned 11 within the historic district and then one by the convention center and one by Alton and
Yes.
Lincoln.
If you don't mind sharing the screen again, please. This shows the 2 locations that are under review today, and I'm happy to go into the other locations approved by Historic Preservation Board if you would like. One is at the intersection of Alton and Lincoln, and the other is on Convention Center between 17th and Dade. We've worked closely with the Convention Center on this location, so here it is an elevation view. And I'm happy to go through these more slowly again if helpful. I'll move to the next site. And this is the one on Alton and Lincoln. Next to the Citizen M Hotel. All of these have been approved for utility conflicts. We've made sure there's sufficient clear path of travel for wheelchairs to go by. We've made sure that there's sufficient distance from sightline triangles.
The one specifically on Alton and Lincoln, there was another project that came before us some months back concerning the landscaping for that area of Lincoln Road and putting some sort of barrier to keep cars from entering Lincoln Road or crashing into Lincoln Road from Alton. Have you all communicated with or taken this plan into consideration when selecting the placement of the kiosk on Alton and Lincoln?
We've definitely taken into consideration the promenade, and the Lincoln Road bid actually recommended to us this site because they think of it as a gateway bookend to let people know that the promenade is beyond the site. But I'm not familiar with that specific development intent. We did work closely with the city and with the bid to make sure that our siting wasn't one that was going to create some sort of obstruction.
It's on the other side of the street. The kiosk is not where the barriers are.
So it's on
It's
the
across
west
from
side?
the theater. Yeah, it's on the west side.
Okay. When it comes to maintenance of the kiosk, you mentioned that you all maintain it. So I assume that once you're into contract with the city, there will be some specifications and goals or benchmarks as to the maintenance so that it just doesn't sit there broken, idle for more than X number of hours or days or what have you. Because that has been a problem with other implementations here in the city. Can you just briefly, if you have any information on that, speak as to that, as to what the breakdowns have been maybe in other locations that you've implemented these kiosks?
Sure. We're obligated to respond to any service request within 24 hours. We clean the kiosks daily. So that means any sort of graffiti removal, et cetera, any sort of things that someone has done to vandalism will be removed immediately. We're very proud of the fact that our clients in other cities will tell you that before they can report a problem, we've cleaned it up. because we're checking them every single day, which is critical. The other really critical element of this type of technology is software upgrades. If your phones weren't getting upgrades, every so often, they wouldn't be very useful to you. We push out upgrades every month to the software, and we're obligated to. And if we fail to do that, the city can also revoke our permits. And so the intention is for the hardware to remain best in class and for the software to remain best in class.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
I have one more question just on the relationship to other places. I know that this is Miami Beach and our goal is to serve the Miami Beach residents, but often Miami acts as a tourist attraction to the greater area. Is the intent for any of these to perhaps ever communicate about, oh, well, you're here in Miami Beach, but you could go X, Y, and Z where there's another kiosk or another kiosk begins to acknowledge these kiosks installed in some sort of cross collaboration?
Absolutely. So we're installing 150 in the city of Miami. We're about to cross the 100 barrier there. We're installing 15 at Aventura. We've already installed, I believe, 5 there. We've already installed 10 in Coral Gables, and we're installing them across South Florida. And absolutely, the idea would be to, let's bring artists from Wynwood to the beach. Let's bring artists from the beach to Wynwood, right, and create kind of that network effect of having a shared wayfinding system across South Florida so that people can not only discover other parts of the city, but understand what's attractive about other parts of the region.
And I'll give you a good example. I was driving home from work last week, and I was just about to get on MacArthur from Biscayne, and just in front of the Frost Science Museum, there's a kiosk, and it was advertising FIU, which is a county-wide institution. So specifically, it was advertising FIU up front, and then it said Wilsonia Museum. So there is going to be some type of cross-pollination between the jurisdictions.
However, if I can just add, okay. The advertising that you do on the Miami Beach kiosk will be for establishments within Miami Beach or Miami Beach and other areas?
The advertisers are generally going to be kind of the big national brands you see when you turn on a football game on a Sunday or a basketball game. Our biggest advertiser last year was Apple. This year it was Samsung, and Apple's a close second, entertainment. So it's going to be the kind of the big national brands. We have a discount rate card for local businesses so that when local businesses do want to advertise, they're not having to pay the rates that Apple is paying.
I have one question actually for Leo, and I don't know, I haven't been on the block very recently, but in one of the pictures that was part of the presentation, it showed that the Citizen M on that side of the sidewalk is still, there's still a barrier up. Is that still the case?
That is the one of the barriers has been removed. It should be opening soon. The construction, I believe, is nearing completion. We actually have an item on the Citizen M later on the agenda for an unrelated issue. So I believe some of the barriers have been removed, but there is still construction activity taking place on the site.
Because I don't know what your time frame is like for installation, but I would just request that before that one goes in, that the Citizen, because it's going to block the street.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
so, okay. Any other questions or concerns? Someone want to make a motion? Oh, actually, sorry, I meant to say, sorry. Is there a way, so again, to echo Myra's concern about maintenance, which I think a lot of us who've lived here for a long time have, is there a way that somewhere on the kiosk there can be a, if maintenance is needed, whatever number to call?
Yes, there already is, and
Okay.
we're happy to ensure that it's on all of them.
Great, thank you. Good.
Pleasure.
Okay, sorry.
Okay. I just want to mention during the presentation that the discussion, two people raised their hands online. I don't know if you'd like to take those comments or if yeah.
I think we should.
Okay.
Yeah.
The first hand raised is Janet Woods. Janet Woods, if you would unmute yourself. No? Okay. Going once, going twice. Okay, the next person is David Perez. David, if you would unmute yourself.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, good morning, David. Before you address the board, I need to swear you in. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you be giving in this proceeding is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Thank you.
Okay, and I'm going to set the clock for 2 minutes for you to address the board.
Awesome. So good morning, board. Thank you for allowing me to speak just for a quick moment. So as a local resident, I'm just wondering, so I know he mentioned a discount regarding local business being able to advertise on the board. Is there a criteria in place for what can be advertised? I'm just wondering if there's something in place to make sure that people are, that have the money are not putting something up that might not be acceptable for everybody to see, considering families, considering people who come to visit. And I'm just wondering what that criteria is, what they're going to use to review, and if it's just based on, well, you can pay it, so we're going to put it up for you.
Good question, David. Thank you.
Happy to answer. If you could please activate the screen share. This shows the content restrictions, nothing political, nothing lewd, nothing obscene, no tobacco, and generally nothing that doesn't align with community standards. Also, when requested to take content down, we're obligated to take that down within 24 hours. Pleasure.
Did we want to try Janet again, or she never got it working? Okay.
Her hand is no longer raised.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you. So is there a motion?
I motion to approve.
I'll second the motion.
Motion by Ms. Meyer, second by Ms. Budalgaoli. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to our next agenda item, 1691 Michigan Avenue. Is that the next one?
The next item on the agenda is DRB 24-1009, 1691 Michigan Avenue. An application has been filed requesting design review approval for exterior modifications to an existing commercial building. This was continued from June 4th and July 2nd, 2024.
Okay, so this item was considered by the board on July 2nd, as stated. The board did provide some feedback to the applicant. So the applicant did go and make some changes to the plans, which they'll present today. This is, just for background, because there were some members that weren't here today. This is a site that has an existing office building. The office building is on land owned by the city, and they have a long-term lease for the office building, which was privately developed. The site has an architecture style that is dated, and they're looking to refresh the building. They're going to be reworking the interior and reclad the facade. The facade will have a limestone veneer. There will be new screening for the parking garage that's attached to the building to the rear of the site. And they've made several changes based on the feedback that they received from the board in July. So they've refined the proposed cladding to the existing parapet wall on the corner of 17th Street and Michigan Avenue to reduce the amount of metallic cladding at the center portion of the parapet wall. The awnings above the ground level were replaced with planters at levels 2 through 5, and the planter at the roof level was removed. They've replaced a proposed long strip metallic light sconces throughout the facade. With mid-size light sconces cladded with natural travertine, and that complements the facade a little bit more. They've aligned the limestone veneer a little bit better to complement the window pattern. Planters on the garage facade were proposed to be removed and replaced with regular pattern of limestone veneer and metal screening. And the proposed metal screening on the garage facade was modified at various locations of the elevation to better wrap the southeast corner. Staff believes that the proposed modifications are in line with the board's direction, and staff is supportive of the changes, and staff recommends that the application be approved, subject to the conditions in the attached draft order.
And Madam Chair, before we start, are there any ex parte disclosures? No. Okay, thank you. And I'll set the clock at 10 minutes. Michael, is that okay?
Yeah, thank you. So good morning again, Madam Chair, Board member staff, Michael Larkin, 200 South Biscayne Boulevard, representing the applicant. You know, this property has had a significant history here in Miami Beach. It was just one of the simple surface parking lots in Lincoln Road a long time ago, over 20 years ago. And then the city decided to do a joint venture where they retained ownership, but they brought in a long-term lessee to do the office building. And Lucky Strike was in the base of this for a long time. I realized then how bad I was at bowling, so I stayed away from Lucky Strike for a while. That was carved up. There's 2 home improvement spaces now that, you know, West Elm and Williams-Sonoma, which are good for a lot of us that would go there. But then Robert has come along and purchased it and wants to turn it from, it's a somewhat dated office building now, into like the most luxurious office building in Miami Beach. You all recognize that, you considered it, and you all are always thoughtful. You zeroed in on some details. I'm going to go through the details and tell you how we responded. So some of the details were the configuration of the awnings and planters at the corner of 17th Street in Michigan. Number 2, the material finish and design details for the building crown that wraps around the corner of 17th Street in Michigan. Number 3, the design of the light sconces on the facade. And number 4, the materials and colors used on the ground floor storefronts. So we have responded to each of those 4 concerns. First, the awning is now limited to the ground floor level, and the color matches the building facade. The remaining levels have planters except for the roof level. Number 2, the building crown has been refined to accentuate the corner, and the shape of the decorative material cladding is more angular to create the desired textured effect. Number 3, we swapped out the long, dark, light sconces for shorter travertine-cladded light sconces that blend into the building facade. And finally, we have clarified the materials and colors along the ground floor storefronts. We would not have been able to do this without the tremendous team. I've already identified to you Robert Ravani as the owner. Our project management team from Robert's shop is James Duke and Andrea Munoz. And we have Jose Gomez from BJ Architects and Carlos Rodriguez from Escala Forma as our design team. So what I'd like to do is turn it over to Carlos and have him walk you through all the different changes. Thank you very much.
Good morning. My name is Carlos Rodriguez, principal of Escala Forma. After the last hearing, we took a lot of the issues that the board had into really dissection and study. We wanted to understand every point of the flow from design to the integration of the lighting, certain kind of figures within this speech. So in front of you, you have the light condition, which is a travertine sconce. That was one of the main points. We wanted something that faded into the building facade, but created a lighting play at night. We wanted this integration to be soft versus the previous submittal, which was a harsh statement that was a little foreign to the building. In taking into consideration the corner, one of the main adjustments to the corner, I think, was a very beneficial point, which was originally we had awnings all the way to the top. One of the comments was to integrate planters that softened that corner condition coming from Michigan. I think it created a layer that the building needed. The building was always a little bit, even now, it feels a little forced to that corner. So I think it pulls the eye straight to that corner. The other comment was the cladding, certain finishes in the cladding that was before, it was a little dark. So as you see here, it's a light champagne metal that is going to be integrated between the panels and also the mullions. We want this building to be a continuous language. The existing condition does not create a marriage between the garage and the existing building. So our intervention is to unite them to create a beautiful, almost study into the neighborhood. The next finish that was requested was really the crown. The crown was always a problem in the beginning design of this building because the feasibility of whether it's hurricane rated, whether it would withstand the lighting conditions. So we looked into materials that wouldn't create such a dominance on top of this building. We wanted it to fade into the structure. So we looked at similar finishes like this micro cement that would be applied to the facade of that crown. Ultimately, the building right now, as it stands, is a direct connection into Lincoln Road, and it's predominantly what I feel is part of the catalyst to the renovation of Miami Beach. Okay, yes. As you see here, in the two studies, we have the awning on the upper side. The awnings were a little dark, and then you have the planter condition that fades into the cladding. As you see, the center metal was reduced so that it created a direct link between the height of the garage. After this, we started studying the current planters. The building has planters that wrap around the garage. And one of the points that was addressed was the maintenance of them. And after further study, we wanted to see what worked in the current planters and what didn't. The plant material has not survived in those planters, so we were concerned at why it didn't survive. So after further dissection, we found out that the long run into the building between the drainage line and the water lines, ultimately the plant material would die. So it wasn't recommended to have these planters in that area. Ultimately, we don't want a product that doesn't last, where you approve it and then suddenly in a couple months you have this dead planter that it becomes a little bit more of a maintenance issue where the plant materials are not consistent to what is approved. So we decided to create more of a fixed condition where it's always going to look like that. The corner planters on the opposite end have direct access into the building. So those lines and drainage lines are easily accessible and maintained. As you see here, this is what I was discussing about the current structure. This building accepts the corner, but also rejects it. We want to create this floral play where the visitors kind of get pulled into this corner and get into a soft transition into Michigan. And this is the overlook into the corner. So this was original. As you see, we have the awnings that flank that facade. One of the main issues was the materiality of the awnings, so we decided to move forward with the removal of the awnings and only having them on the first floor. And that is all.
Thank you very much. Conclude your, are there any other members of your team wishing to speak, or this is, I mean, good? Okay, I'm sure we have some questions. Okay, thank you. Any members of the public? Anybody here online?
We do have one hand raised online. Lyle Stern.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Mr. Stern. Before you address the board, I just need to swear you in. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you'll be giving in this proceeding is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, and I'll set the clock for 2 minutes for you to address the board.
Thank you. Lyle Stern with offices at 690 Lincoln Road. I'm the president of the Lincoln Road Business Improvement District, but I'm not speaking on behalf of the bid only because we haven't had a chance to bring this before the board and vote on it. But as a property owner on Lincoln Road, and with significant commitment to Lincoln Road, I can tell you that I've reviewed this. As importantly as the design is the opportunity to have had Mr. Avani purchase an office building of this caliber on Lincoln Road. He has an incredible track record of recruiting the types of tenants, both office and retail, that we as a community, I think, would like to see abutting Lincoln Road. I personally welcome him and his investment to Lincoln Road. I think that his ability to recruit the kinds of office tenants that we'd like to see here is going to be spectacular. We were involved in bringing Audemars Piguet AP to Sunset Harbor. We see what Barry Sterling has done with his building on Collins Avenue recently with the announcement of the Bausch & Lomb office tenancy. There are a significant number of individuals living in Miami Beach with significant companies and family offices that would like better quality Class A office product to reside in our city. And there's a true lack of it. So I'm excited for what Robert's going to do with this building. I'm excited for what he's going to do for our community. I'm excited that it's part of the Lincoln Road fabric, and I would urge you to pass it today so that Robert can begin the renovation and the leasing. And I thank you for your time and your service to our community by serving on the board.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Anybody else?
No other hands raised.
Okay, I'm now going to close the public portion, open up to the board for discussion. Who would like to begin? Great.
Thank you for listening to us. I think you're really successful. This building looks so mature, I guess, so elegant and simple and clean. I think the plants on every level, all the way to the edge, make a nice difference. It really makes that corner consistent. As much as I hate seeing planters go away in the garage, they were ridiculous and randomly scattered and always looked terrible. And I think the elegance that you established and the connectivity with the garage with the other building, it's really, for the first time, you can see that they actually belong together. So I think you did a great job with that. And that's it. I thank you for listening to us, and I think it's a very successful improvement.
Thank you. Anyone else? Shauna?
Yeah, I'll echo those comments.
Yeah, I wasn't here for the July meeting, but I love the changes here. Coming in with fresh eyes, the only, one thing I really like about the building and that I wish I saw a little bit more of is at the entrance corner where the crown is on the first level. I don't know if it's, you have like metal horizontal lines going across on the entry level. I don't know if was there any thought considered to bringing that maybe around on the garage side as well on the first level? I'm not.
You're referring to the first floor awning?
Yes, exactly.
So the first floor awning metal it's kind of an exposed rendering technique to the awning. So there was no consideration to extend it. The idea is to make it as flat as possible. It's depicting it like a severe line play, but it's a little bit more clean.
Gotcha. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I like the way this looks. Thank you.
And yeah, as we continue with the continuances, please, whoever wasn't here, will go into as much detail as you need. I agree. Thank you very much. I like all the changes. And I particularly like this lighting fixture, and thank you for bringing in a sample. I agree. It definitely has a sort of elegance and a cohesion, and it's interesting. The building was so gray, and that was, everybody was doing everything in gray, and now we're moving more into the browns and the beiges, and here we have this. But I like it, and I really think it was a good choice to rework the sconces, but also the sections. It has a different rhythm to it that I think is more successful. The one thing I would say is I really like the crown. I think it's a really unique feature. I was wondering why you didn't continue, and was it fluting, or is it the light that is creating the pattern on the other part of it?
It's fluting.
Oh, how come you decided not to include it all the way?
All the way in the front. Well, the building currently has a signage, the WIC sign that extends through that fluting portion. The opportunity for the corner was, with the approval of the board, of course, is to potentially submit an opportunity for a sign, a building sign. Yeah.
And you couldn't do that on top of the fluting, you think it would be too busy?
I think it would be too busy. The idea is for the transition tonight to become this beautiful light play so that the pattern is unobstructed. So from any angle where you see it from Miami Beach, it becomes this beautiful textural crown.
So then you're missing in your mind, the sign would be part of the texture.
Correct.
And the sign would be for one of the tenants or the name of the building?
The name of the building.
Okay.
Of course, after hopefully the approval, this would be a second layer to it that needs to be really properly dissected.
Excellent. Okay, so this is a work in progress,
Yes.
but you're aware that it needs something.
Correct.
TBD.
Correct.
Okay, great. Did you have any comments about it?
No, I just wanted to be last. I was just a few years ago involved in the sale of this property by the city to the then group that bought it. And we thought back then the design they had presented was nice eventually. But styles have changed, tastes have changed. And I really like what I saw today. I think it would be a wonderful improvement for that corner.
Does anyone want to make a motion or? have
I
any
make a
comment?
motion to approve.
I second.
Second by Ms. Butagavoli. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Great. Thank you all very much for your time.
Thank you. Well, and I think I speak on everyone's behalf to say that we appreciate that you felt that our comments were helpful and constructive as opposed to an obstacle to moving this forward. So thank you very much. And I think, the result really speaks for itself.
Thank you.
Well, I would note for this item, we can expect it to come back in about 2 months for the driveway portion. They're looking at modifying the driveway portion of the building, which really wasn't focused on in this set of plans. So we can expect that, I believe, for the November meeting.
Is the parking lot still going to stay open to the public? Michael, do you know, is the
that?
parking lot still going to be open to the public? Or it's
Yes,
going
it
to be
will
closed?
be. Yeah, because it serves the business on Lincoln Road. So they go together, so it'll always be open.
The next item on the agenda, 1801 Alton Road.
The next item on the agenda is DRB 24-1015, 1801 Alton Road. An application has been filed requesting design review approval for the construction of a new one-story commercial building, including a variance from the minimum landscape requirement bordering a temporary or provisional surface parking lot, abutting a property line, street, or sidewalk, and one or more waivers, replacing an existing two-story commercial building. This was continued on June 4th and July 2nd meeting.
Okay, and before we start, any ex-party communication disclosures from the board? No, okay. Mr. Murray, 10 minutes?
Perfect. Should I give my?
Sorry.
Quick staff presentation. Okay, so this site, it was previously on the agenda. It does include a variance, which requires 5 votes, so that's why it kept getting continued for a few months. So this has not yet been heard. The site is in a CD1 district, which is a low-intensity commercial district. It's just over an acre. It's an irregularly shaped lot on an irregular block. It's the block that has also a Publix and a Walgreens. And so this is a building that currently has, I believe, a Chase Manhattan Bank or Chase Bank and Social Security offices as well on this site. The applicant is proposing to replace that building, and they don't have the full site fully developed with what they want to do, but they do want to reintroduce the bank on the corner, on the southwest corner of the site. So they're proposing a 5,000 square foot, one-story building. The rest of the site currently has some existing parking that's in place, and they'll be providing some additional parking lot, but we can expect that in the near future, they'll be coming back with a plan on doing something else with that parking lot. In the meantime, they will be screening the parking lot with landscaping, improving the look of the parking. They are seeking some variances related to the parking and keeping that parking. Some of those spaces are non-conforming. They're a little bit smaller than what we would require today. And we have some additional standards that we would be imposing on new parking lots that they're requesting a variance from. Staff is not opposed to the variance because we do expect it to be temporary as the site we do expect will be developed at some point in the future. The building is of contemporary style. They are requesting some waivers of our frontage standards, our short and long frontage standards. Because it fronts an FDOT road, they do expect having to make some changes based on FDOT's requirements. However, as part of these standards, they will be maintaining a 5-foot clear pedestrian path. Basically, they're requesting to reduce the what's required, the 10-foot wide circulation zone to about 8 feet 5 inches, but they will be keeping a clear pedestrian path of 5 feet. So staff is not opposed to the requested waivers. So with that, staff recommends that the application be approved, including the requested variances.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Mickey Marrero, Burke, Howard, Fernandez, Larkin, and Tapenis, 200 South Biscayne Boulevard. With me today, my colleague Emily Balter, our project architect Renee Gonzalez, our landscape architect Vincent Villagenzi is on Zoom, and we all represent Santa Elena Holdings, the property owner, and its principal, Dominic Cavagnuolo. So Dominic's owned this site for a long time, and some of you were here, I think in 2021, when we had approval for a office building that we were actually very excited about at the time. And hope that went forward, but because of changing market conditions, construction costs, the limitations on the CD1 and challenges with the existing tenant, that project will not be able to go forward. And we've since been working with Dominic and his design folks on trying to find an ultimate solution for the site. One of the things that is challenging is, as sort of Rogelio got into a little bit, we have a long-term tenancy with Chase Bank. It has two remaining 10-year options that they've indicated they're going to exercise. So when we're trying to figure out what best to do with this building, one of the things that keeps coming in is how do we work around this tenant. The building that exists today, and if, Emily, if you could kind of start. Yeah, so as Rogelio pointed out, the property is very irregularly shaped. It's sort of shaped like Oklahoma, but turned over is the way I sort of see it. You probably see this site almost every day. And you didn't realize that they also owned that sliver connecting between the Publix and the Walgreens. So that is the site. It's a very prominent location on Dade Boulevard and Alton Road. And the building that exists there, if Emily can go forward, it's a 1982 building that may have been very exciting many years ago, but it's certainly not really functional today and not a place where we're attracting the Class A tenants. So Chase is anxious to see a new space for their tenancy, and our client really wants to do, because of the prominent location and because of the opportunities at this site, wants to do something special that's going to be a permanent solution here, but we're not there yet. So what we're bringing before you is a really simple current solution, which is removing that 1980, and that was just what I mentioned before. That was the 2021 approval from this board. Very nice. We were actually very excited about it. That resulted in comments from you all, and we came back, but ultimately it's just not going to happen. This is what we're proposing now. Obviously, it's a simple solution here. It replaces the dated bank space with a more modern, simple space on the most prominent location on the lot, and makes the lot breathe a lot more functional, a lot of landscape, a lot more resiliency on this lot. So this will be the solution for the bank. It takes the bank and that tenancy out of the equation of the design of the new building, which has been one of the challenges. And Dom's been working very closely with them. They're a great tenant. They're a great partner, but it's just been a challenge to try and figure out what to do with the whole site as they're part of it. So here's, again, just pointing out the variances, which Rogelio described in some detail. They don't relate to the building. They really relate to the existing configuration of the parking and the requirements of the code. We do believe this is a temporary solution, but we still feel that it's an improvement to what's there now. It removes kind of this overbearing building that really isn't helping anyone at this point and not drawing any design excitement to the area. Replaces it with landscaping, more than enough parking for the Chase Bank, and a new, sleek, simple, resilient Chase Bank location. Here's some renderings of the new building, which has a similar vocabulary to the prior approval, but obviously taking out a lot of the additional square footage. Here's the architectural plans, and again, I want to point out the main thing that strikes most obvious is the irregular shape, which just makes trying to comply with these site standards very, very challenging. Which is why we requested variances and why we had to skip the last few meetings to be here. But staff understands, and we hope that you do as well, the challenges with the site, and as a result, the warranted variances. Here's just, again, it's hard to sort of see here, but the landscaping, we've met with the staff on the landscaping. It's going to be a open, walkable, pedestrian-friendly, lush environment on that prominent location that we think will be successful, and an improvement to what's there today. Between now and when the site is ultimately, we will be back before you, we hope. I don't know if it's in 2025 or the next year. There's no definite plan for the new building that will come here, but we do think that will happen soon. Dominic also, in addition to being an owner here and a business owner in the community, he lives in the community and has been reaching out to his neighbors and colleagues, and we were able to obtain letters of support from 5 members of the community that are interested in seeing the project redeveloped. Those are in the record. And with that, we'd like to conclude and reserve some time for rebuttal. We have our landscape architect on Zoom. Renee is here in person. So if you have any questions, we're happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other members of the public wishing to speak?
And there are no hands raised.
Okay, great. I'm now going to close the public portion and open it up to the board for comment. Who would like to start?
I have a couple questions, if you can make clarification. So when you say that you anticipate future development, that's in your Oklahoma-shaped site or the sort of rectangular area that would be directly north?
Well, no, the property, the Oklahoma-shaped site, that's our property.
Yeah. So you mean this is a temporary building? I guess I don't understand.
No, the building will, the anticipation that this building will remain. The building itself is not a temporary solution. I mean, that, I'm not telling you that couldn't change in the future, but the idea is that that building will be the future home of the Chase. It'll be they wanted something on that corner, so there will be a development. Again, the hope is a development in the future on the remainder of the site, which will incorporate parking. It would replace in
The
some way
parking that might
area.
be directly east to
Correct.
it or something, okay. Okay, I mean, that helps clarify a little bit. You know, looking at that intersection, I think it's a very prominent intersection in Miami Beach, and it's one of the larger intersections. You guys are probably more familiar with the walkability there versus drivability, and if trends would shift to be more pedestrian friendly. Well, I think that the design is very clean. It doesn't really address the public at all, and I don't know, I guess I'm interested to hear your guys' thoughts on that.
I just, before we go into the design itself, you were asking for a variance. Can you go back to the rendering and show exactly where the variance in the parking area is requested?
Sure. So the variances, and there's a summary of the variances, they relate to the existing parking area, not to the building, not to the new parking that we're providing, but instead of redeveloping the entire thing and starting from scratch, we're trying to maintain some of the existing parking areas that are functional and there. So it's, again, the 16-foot parking spaces when 2 feet of pervious overhang is required. We're providing 16 where 18 is required. We are maintaining asphalt hardscape in certain areas and maintaining an existing 4 to 5 foot border where 5 feet is required, 4.5 landscape border where 5 feet is required. We believe they're really minor variances, and that's why staff is supporting them, because they're just maintaining those existing components. The building meets all the code, and all of the new stuff does meet the code as well.
So you're going from 5 feet to 4.5 feet.
Right.
And then the 16 feet parking spaces with a 2 foot of pervious overhang, where exactly is that going to be?
It's occurring in the temporary parking lot, which is the
Okay.
yellow shaded area.
Okay, the
So
green,
that
okay.
meets code, but it's the temporary lot where the existing building used to be. But where you have to the north and to where the Oklahoma part goes north, that's all existing, but it's converting to temporary. So when it's
Okay.
converting to temporary, it doesn't meet the current codes.
Right.
So that's the variance.
Thank you.
We're just leaving it as is. Well, with new landscaping, of course.
Shayna brought up the issue of its connection to the pedestrian traffic and then to the vehicular traffic on a very major intersection. The vehicular traffic actually, if you're heading west and then going north, is decent because you've got that little island that allows you to get away from the main intersection and make that turn. As to the rest of the vehicular traffic, I'd like to hear from the rest of the board members because it is kind of closed in, not very welcoming to anybody driving by or walking by. Not that there's a lot of walking in that area, but there is some.
There's more than you would expect. Like, I've been at that corner and I've seen pedestrians and more than I would ever expect, but there is. I have some reservations about this plan, and I'm very concerned that once you tear the building down and just put this one small building, that the lot is going to just read as a giant parking lot. And this is such a prominent corner. The other thing too is the design of the building itself. I mean, it really just looks like you had a design and then you just sort of erased everything else, and this is what we were left with. So, you know, I would love to see a little bit more intentional. I mean, I understand what this could be down the line, but who knows? What, you know, it's very hard to plan now for what will be. Things are so unpredictable. You know, and there is, for me, the design of this building. So now you have essentially an asphalt parking lot, and you're right. Like this parking lot, it's black asphalt. It's not pervious. It's not anything. And then you're adding more parking lot to replace a large building, and then you have this pavilion-like structure that reads to me. This feels like a greenhouse. Like, I know this corner. It gets really hot. It's really, in fact, that was my comment for the last design that we had, that you had this open space up top, and I was like, it's going to get really hot. It faces the sun. I feel like this design needs a little bit of something, like Shauna, I think she said, to respond, like, even if it was an overhang to create shade onto the sidewalk. But I think as a whole, you know, if you would say, okay, we're not just replacing with parking lot, there is going to be mature trees, there's going to be a little bit more, something like that. You know, with this building, you just have this ring of greenery along the top. Again, it just sort of looks like it flew there and stuck. Interestingly, you mentioned that, you know, this resilient new design, I find this to be one of the least resilient designs I've seen. So, you know, and please correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm misinterpreting, if I'm misunderstanding what's happening here, but, you know, a glass pavilion surrounded by nothing on a busy street where there are pedestrians and there is traffic, I don't really know if that's the right gesture for this space.
And maybe, sorry, one additional comment, and I know we can't control budgets and development possibilities, but again, like, being less dense than that's currently there, this major intersection also, you know, like a small one-story building on that intersection just seems out of place. So I don't know if there is a way to talk about, you know, the development plans of the full site, or like if this building, you know, if other development happens, will it go up? You know, is this building being designed to anticipate, you know, growth in the second or third floors, or, you know, it feels just way out of context at this intersection.
And just to add to that, when I first saw the design now, and in the agenda, it just looks like a temporary thought, not a permanent. And sure enough, it isn't permanent because the rest of the site, the plans haven't been put together. And so it doesn't make sense without having an entire plan for this site. So, especially in Miami Beach, to go from several stories to one story, it just doesn't, it just, to me, it looks more of a temporary structure.
Yeah, I think we're responding to Chase really as being like a long-standing business there, servicing that community. Obviously, you've seen their logo on the tower, and it's been there for at least since I've been here, you know, 20 years. So in order to do that and to think about the future development and keeping Chase there, like Mickey mentioned, the lease agreements and things like that they want to enforce, how do we do that? So the idea was to create the smaller building that was a remnant of the previous design, but to place Chase there with that. Now, with the walkability, our intent was to address that with beautiful landscape, lush landscape, trees that'll remain there, you know, throughout, hopefully, for decades to come, and really address that. Now, with how it responds to the intersection, we were hoping that the metal screening, you know, that's above, that creates this pavilion, I guess, aspect, creates some depth because it is off the facade a little bit. So it's not like a metal panel, like shining direct light, you know, as you're driving north or west, as you say. And, you know, at night, as you know, Chase is known for their lighting and, you know, really attracting, you know, customers to their space and to those intersections. So at night, we're hoping that it becomes this jewel box, which is exactly the words that Chase describes this as something simple. It's their jewel box. And of course, you know, with the future building, it'll be integrated. The idea is, you know, based on the previous design that we had, that the new building could integrate the rooftop at some point and really activate that space even further. So those are the intent, but you know, I think with the landscape and with how Alton Road, that edge right there can really, you know, be quite beautiful and, you know, shaded, and people can walk to Walgreens. It's got the same context as Walgreens and Publix. So, you know, with that, I don't know if we can show the rendering that I have on the screen, but
Can we put up, yeah, there you go.
so this is the kind of, I think, idea that, you know, Chase can really, you know, attract people to the site.
And I think it's usually bizarre for us to come asking for a building that's smaller in scale than what's there. It's usually the opposite, or at least, you know, a wash. Here it is different than what we usually do, but it is a step in getting to what I think ultimately will be the right solution here. The site is zone CD1, as Rogelio said, and it feels like it would be a more intense zoning just because of its prominent location and what's around it. CD1 is a 1.0 FAR. That's one of the challenges that we've had before. So we believe that there are ways now to maximize the site and do something more exciting, work with the city, be it a mixed use, be it some exciting residential project, something there that we know that hopefully the community will support and the city will support. But one of the biggest challenges, as I pointed out, is working with, again, Chase, long-term tenant, great tenant, but making them part of the design of that new project has been a challenge because they're anxious to have a new space. And that building that's there now is kind of just a big cement block that takes away from what's around it. This will, I think, open up the site in a way that's a little more breathable. And yes, parking's there just in lieu of doing something that we're going to demolish immediately. We know that we don't have the answer, but this is, we believe, a necessary step to get there. We're happy to take in your comments, but really hope that we can carry this temporary measure in a way that will get us to make this point B and then to get us to the final point C.
So, Mayor, you know, to me, honestly, it feels kind of like a sales center for a condo. I mean, it's just like a temporary, I know it's not a temporary building. I know what you're trying to do. I got to ask you though, why the hell are you trying to narrow the sidewalks when you're doing this small building on this big parking lot? You want a less space on the sidewalks? Did I understand that from 8.5 feet instead of 10?
No, actually, well, the new standards has the wider 10-foot circulation, but currently there's a little tiny 5-foot
Right, but
sidewalk.
why are you asking for a variance on the width of the sidewalk when you're doing this from scratch for this tiny little building?
No, well, on the Alton Road side, we can't really change because that's all FDOT. So that will have that 8'8" regardless because that is what it is. So we're just maintaining that 8'8" and having a smooth transition. Let me see.
So normally you'd have to do 10 feet, right, on the Dade Boulevard
Well, it's
side?
10 feet of circulation. I don't know if Rogelio can explain it a little further, but it can be a combination of 5-foot sidewalk and also landscape. But in this case,
But 10 feet instead of 8.5. And that, my whole thing is with, I know staff approves it, but this town has just not done a good job with the widths of sidewalks, and never has anyone said this sidewalk's too wide. So it bothers me with a new building that you wouldn't meet the new standards, that's all. When you're.
yeah, I mean, we're actually increasing the sidewalk.
I understand, but you're still not meeting the new 10-foot width, and that, I don't find a need for that variance.
Yeah, and that I think is a waiver that we're asking for that.
Right.
But and one of the issues that I think it's at least, I don't know if Rogelio said it, it's in the staff report, is it is an FDOT road, so we recognize that getting those additional changes will be close to impossible. We're open to having them, and maybe we end up not needing it.
Right.
But that is something that we recommend that we include it because of the unlikely scenario that FDOT will approve those changes. We're not decreasing, and we're increasing it in other places, but in that one spot, we're just maintaining it's, you know, a little over a foot difference.
Yeah, staff was not opposed to it because our standard calls for essentially a 15-foot sidewalk. Basically, 5 feet of that is supposed to be landscaping, and then 10 feet for what we call the circulation zone, of which 5 feet needs to be totally clear. You can't put sidewalk cafes, lighting, signs, or anything on those 5 feet. This area has a very wide landscape area. It's wider than 5 feet. So overall, the width of the space is greater than 15 feet, which is what we would require. But the actual circulation zone is a little bit narrower than what we would typically want to see. But given that the overall width was greater, they are maintaining a 5-foot clear pedestrian path because we don't expect sidewalk cafe seats or anything like that in this area. We were okay with the waiver. But that is a concern we raised to them. We did want to see it 10 feet, but given the, their concerns with FDOT and the existing width of that right-of-way, we were willing to accept the waiver.
And on the Dade Boulevard side where the triangle is, we wanted to keep 2 feet of landscape in front of the building. So that's where you see that sliver of green right in front of the building. That's where the 8'8" is, and then 5 foot of landscape. So that's where the discrepancy of that foot and a half is really there, keeping that 2 foot edge in front of the building, which is on the property.
So in essence,
not
the
in the right of
space is there,
The
correct?
space is there.
So if in the future we wanted a 10-foot wide sidewalk, there's room for it?
Correct.
Okay, that's all, that's
And-
my biggest concern.
And in front of the
because
temporary parking, that is all that lush landscape and in layers and with trees. But as you can see how the property line is kind of like in the public right-of-way, or, quote unquote public right-of-way, and goes all the way to the curb at Dade Boulevard. So, just trying to maintain and for the future.
Okay, that's all,
Yeah.
it makes me crazy when we have these narrow sidewalks with new stuff and it's ridiculous, so I get it, I'm okay with that.
I think that, to go back to the design, thank you for your comment, important. And then to go back to the design, the nice thing about having a fairly straightforward sort of pavilion structure is that, you have the bones, and it's probably not going to take that much to add a little bit of something to get it to, I think, what we're all sort of getting at, of a little bit more of a punch, a presence. I know that it's a pretty long building, but, I keep thinking of the context of this property, that it is next to the Walgreens that is surrounded by a big parking lot, and then there's an alleyway, and then there's a parking lot, and then there's Publix, and then across the street it's Dade Boulevard, and there's a canal. So there's just a lot of, again, I don't want this to feel even more like an island of parking lots in a very central location of our city. So that's my concern about the plan in general. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I was getting at. I don't mind the one story. I'll disagree with my peers up here, but I think it's a little refreshing to have a one-story building at this intersection. But I am, like them, I am concerned actually on the Dade side of the pedestrian experience. I feel like it's very tight on the southeast corner of the building, where we just hit that right angle and then go into the parking lot. I'm also curious to see what the landscaping looks like along that temporary,
Yeah.
I don't
It's
know if
here.
your landscape architect can speak to that, if it's
present
just
the-
a straight hedge or.
If Vince is, Rogelio, Vince Villagenzi, I think is on Zoom. I don't know if he can raise his hand. If there's specific landscape questions, he should be available.
I see, there's a phone number, I don't know if that's his phone number, but I don't see that name.
Like, it looks like a low hedge, and I don't know if, we can put some temporary tree, or shade trees, or.
Yeah, I mean, those are their shade trees. You can see the four kind of medium-sized circles, and then there's an existing beautiful tree that's there that we want to maintain and keep.
Renee, I think Vince is trying to get on.
There's a 305-858 number, is that him? Because I don't see that name.
Well, I had a similar comment. So while you guys are queuing up, what is happening in all of this temporary parking? Because why not, since we know this is going to be developed, or that's the goal, have a temporary, enlarged planting area a tree bank, if you will, and then they get dispersed around the site when the building comes? Or like, why do we need so many parking spaces in this area to the right? And could we not expand that green a little bit more?
Well, that's more of a, I guess, technical question, why we went to the temporary parking.
Right, yeah. Well, number one, I mean, how much over on required parking are we? Because we do have to still park the bank, which is significant, the 5,000 square foot space.
So, right, so there's 55 existing spaces in the current parking. 17 of those are dedicated to the Chase building per code. And then I think it's kind of 30 more spaces are dedicated actually per lease, I guess. I think it's even 40. Yeah. There's quite a bit that are already dedicated per lease that were there before, because Chase was the primary tenant. Social Security just had more kind of in and out type of clientele. But in terms of switching to the temporary parking, it just seemed the least, I mean, impactful. I mean, I guess if we do plant beautiful trees and it's a tree bank, those have to then come out. So that, I don't think that is.
Right, that's how a tree bank works, right? They would could be moved and integrated into the landscape as the rest of the building was designed. I mean, I guess I'm just trying to help see a path forward where the city isn't so temporary parking is the least amount of cost, like paved surface lot, but you're getting income on the site. So how long can it be temporary parking, and why would there be an incentive for any other development?
The goal here isn't to generate income on the site. There is a lot to it being a simple and more economical solution, because we know in the relatively near future, and I'm talking, again, I can't guarantee a time, but probably sometime next year, we'll be back before you with something that will be the more permanent solution. This was it is bizarre, but it was a necessary step to separate the Chase discussion from the new development. And it took us a while to get Chase on board, basically everybody on board, and everybody in the neighborhood that we've spoken to sees the future potential of this site. So we didn't want to start with something that would be intrusive from us landscaping and the site work that we just know is going to have to come out possibly before we get a permit for it. We don't know. So that really was the thinking. We're trying to, again, it's not a desire to make an economical, an income generating lot. It's just a simple way to get us from point A to point B to hopefully soon thereafter point C. And it was a challenge to try and be as simple as possible, but we do think this will get us to the successful solution.
I'm sorry. I will tell you, my experience has been that the building isn't fully utilized, or doesn't seem to have a lot of activity above the Chase floor, the Chase Bank floor. There is the Social Security office. A lot of it is done by Zoom, and some of it is done in person contact, and it is a wonderful amenity for Miami Beach residents to have that, a wonderful service. But I will tell you that between Chase employees, Chase customers, and the occupants above the Chase Bank, that parking lot as it exists today, a lot of times is full. My biggest concern, again, I will reiterate, is that it seems we're approving something piecemeal. I would like to, and I don't mind approving something piecemeal as one board member, as long as I know what the overall future plan is going to be, so that I can see how this would incorporate into the future plan. That's my thought.
I think to sort of synthesize, I feel like you've gotten a lot of comments and feedback from the board. I can't speak for everybody else. This to me is heading towards another continuance. So I just wanted to maybe sort of, do you feel like if that becomes what everybody votes on, you have some good direction of why we think this might not be as successful as it could be, and therefore how to make it a little bit more successful? Like, have we effectively conveyed our concerns?
I think I wouldn't mind pushing that a little further. Sarah, you made a comment about maybe cantilevering something or adding some accent to that proposed building. Can we hear a little bit more about that? Because I think that's something that can be done without too much disruption to
It
the
seems
vision
like
here.
the building almost needs some sort of anchor, and maybe because it is again, every time I envision that parcel, there's just sun beating down. I don't know why of all the, but it just seems like there's not ever a lot of shade there, and you know, the people are walking.
Any
frequently.
overhang, and you're right at a busy corner, it would be nice if people could stand under something if it was raining, like an eyebrow. I mean, I know it's cliche, but you know, we used to have eyebrows on every building that was on the sidewalk in this town in the early days.
It would also provide some shade into the interior. You know, I think about the one nice thing about walking down Lincoln Road is so many of those buildings are built so that you do have almost this loggia effect.
Right.
I don't know how deep you can or want to go, but that's what, and I also think that having, I guess, because you did put this horizontal line in, but if that could function more as an awning or a shade structure or something, maybe that would offset, I'm going to say, sort of the awkwardness of this small building and, you know, shoved into the extreme corner of this very large property.
Right.
So that could be one thing to play with. I also don't know, and this is my personally, if the greenery along the top edge is really doing what you want it to do. And then, yeah, I mean, I would like to, it's so funny because in so many of our city parking lots, they've taken away parking spaces and added trees.
Right.
And here you're doing the opposite. So I think there's also direction too about how to make this a little bit, you know, maybe give it some presence with some mature trees or something. Again, we all seem to keep going back to like, oh, it's just going to be a sea of parking lots.
Right.
You're just adding more parking lots to a very parking lot heavy site to begin with then on a 4-lane road or the corner of 2 4-lane roads. So it's just a lot of an open space.
I think it's important to stress, though, I mean, if anybody's not on the same page as me, but I understand your purpose and your reasoning for this. So I would not want to cause conditions that were wasteful or went against what you're trying to do here. So I think we all need to be cognizant of that, understand the parking lot's not being changed because it's what's existing. Anything you could do to fluff it, but I would never want you to spend time or money to do something that's going to be torn out in a short period of time. So I think if you could add some kind of shade structure to the sidewalk area and then kind of fluff up the landscaping a bit within the parameters that you guys are saying. I mean, I think we all understand this is going to be redeveloped.
Right.
So we don't want you to spend, we don't want to waste the energy and money to do that. I mean, at least I don't.
That makes sense.
Well, and I'm also concerned, you know, I'm thinking right across the street is that property that we've now seen since I've been on the board. I've seen 3 different presentations of what should happen there. You know, it's, I understand the reasoning behind what this design is and the long-term plan, but it is very hard to plan necessarily. I do think that Myra had a very good suggestion of at least give us where this could be going. I know that there's a skyscraper in Chicago that it was designed to be added to,
Right.
and it has since been added to. But what was there before the additions stood on its own, and I think that that's our concern, that maybe this building doesn't have the presence that it should, considering the location.
Okay.
So yeah. So does anybody want to make a motion or?
We do have VFD, is that your
Yeah,
landscape
that's
architect?
it,
I don't know if
yes.
you want them to make any comments. or-
Just since some questions on landscape, if you don't mind just having to address those very quickly.
I'll just need to swear in the witness.
Yes, hi, yeah, sure. This is Vincent Filigenzi.
Vincent, if you could, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you'll be giving this proceedings, the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, thank you. You may address the board now.
Okay, yeah, so I guess the issue at hand was, you want to start, Mickey?
Well, I guess I could just repeat the question, is just mostly, you know, along Dade Boulevard, I guess in the site in general, like in terms of providing more trees or or shading type of elements throughout the landscape is really the question, and like what is really going on like around Dade Boulevard. And then, you know, we do have some trees proposed on the other side of the temporary structure and along Alton Road in terms of the landscape there.
Right, so basically, we'll start with the parking. So the parking, yeah, that's fully enclosed and buffered from the street. And then what we're also talking about is providing shade elements along the sidewalk areas That's what I'm assuming we're speaking of. So we've have trees and palms and street trees that do align on Dade Boulevard that do that. And I understand that there's future improvements. So, I mean, anything can be relocated later time, but we will make sure that we have, or we do have actually, the shade trees and planting. But like I said, that can easily be relocated for future improvements.
So going back to what you all were saying, I think what we're going to at least try and bring back to you, and not completely redo this whole thing, but maybe add a little bit more character, a little bit more accents to the building, make it have more prominence, with the understanding that I don't know, Myra, that we can bring you a plan. I mean, we can talk about ideas, but we really were hoping to have, whenever this is approved, that blank slate, so we could then fully work on something with knowing the limitations that we have. Right now, it's just been too many different options, but we can maybe have a little bit more information on where we think it might go. But as far as that building today and making it a little, as you said, a little more oomph, a little bit more character, we can come back with that and maybe just modify the landscaping a little bit so it's further buffers the parking and provides a little bit more shading and character to the walking areas.
I'm not sure if you have the information on this, but in reducing this building from the number of stories it has now to the one-story design that you're presenting, does it require total demolition, or is it just going to be interior demolition, removal of part of the building on the sides and on the upper floors?
It's a two-story building now. It will be total demolition of that existing building.
Okay.
The proposal is a total demolition of that building, 100%.
And just back on the landscaping, I think when you guys come back, what could also be helpful is if you have any elevations or renderings of what that parking lot's gonna look like. I think it's a little hard to visualize in the plan view only. I think that would be helpful for us as well.
Okay.
Okay, does somebody want to make a motion? Sorry.
Yeah, I'd make a motion for continuing.
October, I think we're pretty narrow what we're looking at, so I think we can be ready in October.
Okay. To October, they have the deadline of whatever, you know that, so.
If we could have something by Friday the 13th, good lucky day.
All right.
So that would be the October 1st meeting.
So I make a motion to continue to the October 1st meeting.
Yes. I'll second that.
Motion by Mr. Diffender, second was Ms. Lewin? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. I now need to recuse myself for the next item and have our vice chair take over.
The next item of the agenda is DRB 24-1016, 976 West 41st Street, 3925 and 3915 Alton Road. An application has been filed requesting design review approval for the construction of a new 7-story commercial building to replace existing commercial buildings. Specifically, the application includes a variance to reduce the required rear setback and include one or more variants. This was continued on June 4th and July 2nd meeting. Only the variance was continued. The remainder of the project has been approved.
So just for background, the project actually received design review approval on June 4th, 2024 by the board. There was a variance that was part of the application. We did not have 5 members present at that meeting, so the variance has been continued. So the only thing before you today is the variance request. The actual project, the design review of the project has already been approved. The project also received approval from the planning board for a conditional use permit for a neighborhood impact structure in March. This is essentially a 7-story office building on the corner of Alton Road and 41st Street. The site is requesting a variance for the rear yard setback. The code requires that there be a 5-foot rear yard setback. It is an irregular lot. It does have an irregular corner that forces the building to be pushed back in order to create some more open space on that corner. And because it is an irregular lot, it's basically the textbook case for why variances exist. And so that is a hardship for the site, and staff is supportive of the rear setback variance. The rear of the site is where the loading and the trash pickup and everything takes place. They are improving the existing conditions. Currently, that happens outdoors. They are internalizing the loading. They are internalizing the trash pickup. They are providing a ramp into the garage in the rear setback, so there won't be any driveways on the primary frontages of the building, which improves the look of the 41st Street corridor and the Alton Road corridor. So staff is supportive of the variance request, and staff recommends that the variance be approved, subject to the conditions in the attached draft order.
And before we start, I just need to know if there's any ex parte communications that are need to be exposed. No, thank you.
Steve, I was not sworn before.
Do you swear, or please raise your right hand, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you'll be giving in this proceeding is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And are you expecting any members of your team that I should
No.
swear in now? Okay,
Just me.
thank you.
Okay, Mr. Vice Chair and members of the board. My name is Ira Giller, 975 Arthur Godfrey Road. I'm the principal in this development. It's our family is developing this property that we've had for over 40 years. As most of you recall, I think, Myra, you were not at the meeting. The previous requests for the building itself have all been approved. So today's focus is really just on the rear setback along the alley. And as Rogelio said, this is a classic case of why variances were created. There's a hardship because of the shape of the land. I will bring, as you can see in the site plan, the access that we're talking about is along the alley that's in the center of the circle. And I can point that out right here. And I've got some views. Here you see the view in the alley itself in its current state, as well as all of these are views of from the alley that's affected. We've got other development in the area, the buildings themselves. I think I'll just go to the site plan and we can talk about that. So this is the alley in the gray, and the entrance to the ramp for parking is here. And this is the loading zone, which is a covered loading zone. This building over it. So we're talking about the variance of the 5-foot setback along here. That's the long and short of it. If you've got questions, I think this is, I don't want to belabor it. I think it's pretty straightforward. But if any of the board has questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay, should we open it up to the public first? Is there anybody online?
There's nobody online with their hand raised.
Okay, nobody in person, so this concludes the public portion. I'll open it up to the board.
I concur with staff's analysis that the irregular shape of the property and the required transition between base flood elevation and sidewalk elevation do indeed create practical difficulties that justify the approval of the requested variance. And so I intend to vote to grant the variance, and I would encourage the other members of the board to do so as well.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any comments?
Yeah, I think that entrance to the garage and the loading areas in the back, hiding it away from visibility of people walking on that sidewalk and coming to that building in the future, make a whole lot of sense. If the variance is not granted, the 5-foot setback, then really what happens is that there's less area for a truck to go in and park to do loading or uploading. And the ramping into the parking garage would be reduced by 5 feet. And I think that creates more of an inconvenience for those using that service in the back. So I agree. Think it makes sense.
Okay, anybody else? Do we have a motion then?
I move to grant the variance.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 No opposed? Unanimous? Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you very
Giller.
much.
Beautiful project.
Thank you.
Okay, motion passes. I will just note for the record that the chair, Sarah Giller Nelson, did recuse herself due to a conflict of interest.
Thank you.
Next item.
The next item in the agenda is DRB 24-1019, 1339 14 Terrace, Casa Leroy Dobles. An application has been filed requesting design review approval for a new four-story duplex residential building, including one or more waivers to replace an existing residence on the site. This was continued from the July 2nd meeting.
So this item, as stated, was continued from the July 2nd meeting. The board at that time did express some concerns with a green wall that was located on the eastern portion of the front facade. The concern was that even though initially it may look very good, that the maintenance of the green wall would be very difficult in the future, leading to that green wall not looking as good in the future. So keeping that in mind, the applicant did submit some revised plans. Essentially, they're continuing the screening that was located on the west side of the facade into the east side of the facade. Staff feels that is consistent with the direction that was provided by the board, and staff recommends that the design be approved, including the proposed waiver. The waiver was simply of the ground floor clearance, which should be okay because there's not much habitable space on that ground floor. It's really for upper level access, so really staff has no concerns with that. So staff recommends approval.
And before we get started, are there any ex-parte communications? Nope. Okay. And sir, have everyone been sworn in on your team? Or do you need to be sworn in?
I was sworn in.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Good morning, board. This is Ronnie Mateo of Mateo Architecture, 8887 Southwest 131st Street, Miami. We were here 2 months ago with this project. I know that some of you were not here at that meeting, and I'm remiss that in my submittal presentation for today, I didn't show what it was the last time versus now. I don't know if there's a way we can look at that, but nevertheless, I recall basically a couple of comments from the board regarding the concern, as Rogelio has stated, the green wall that we had proposed over the garage entrance vertically on the east and south corner of the building. Even though we proposed a system that is designed to be green on the front and on the back of it. In other words, it's not a green wall that would go up on a solid wall, but it was intended to be a transparent green wall, and the system that we had proposed was accessible from the front porches, if you will, of our duplex. But the concern was raised that maintenance might be an issue for this, and so with that regard, we made this proposed change. Our designs, typically in our work, is we try to be very simple and straightforward and clear about the intentions. This is a duplex project, but we wanted to make sure that the presentation to the street was not of a, bookend or a, back-to-back design split down the middle. So we tried to create a facade that was more unifying of a single structure, even though the plans for the project are symmetrical east and west. See if I'm going to do this right. How do I change this? Here we go. All right. To go to the next page. Oh, okay, here we go. I'm computer illiterate. The site, the location, the context is an eclectic neighborhood with high rises and still some single family homes, et cetera, surrounding the property. These are a number of pictures of the surrounding, the issues with raising the property, and then the floor plans that are composed of a parking garage on the ground level, It is hidden by the foyer and the front porch, if you will, of the building that hides the parking. And then the units occupy 2 floors above the parking plus a roof deck. The other comment, one of the other comments that was made at the board meeting last time was a bedrooms that we proposed on the 3rd floor, on the 2nd floor, in the back of the building, that a comment was made that we may need to have some more windows, and we introduced some new windows on the east and west side of that, of those bedrooms. Those 2 things were the major commentary of our board meeting last time, and we have done that by incorporating additional windows in the rear bedrooms, which are not the main bedroom, but 2 bedrooms on the lower level. Again, a straightforward, simple composition is what we intended to do here, with a central area that was a 2-story volume that would bring light in from the sides of the units, and using horizontal louvers for shading on the south and east side and in the front of the building, while using vertical louvers on the east and west sides to allow light into the center portions of our composition. We have landscape planters throughout. They're all accessible so that they're easy to maintain. And that's basically the presentation that we have here today.
Thank you very much. Are there any other members of the public wishing to speak? Anyone online?
Nobody online with their hand raised.
Okay. I'm now going to close the public portion and open it up to the board for discussion. Who would like to start? I can say thank you. I appreciate you taking into consideration the recommendations that we gave you. I did notice, I did spend a lot of time really looking at this because I wanted to, again, to move the process forward as productively as possible. And I did notice that the bedroom orientation and the bathrooms were changed. So I think that that's very nice. I'm glad that you did that, as well as removing the green wall. So thank you for that. Any additional comments or thoughts? I can keep going. I don't know.
I can just, add on to that, I appreciate the thoughtfulness and the bringing the design back to our board. And I think it's still a very clean and thoughtful building. And I think it's a good addition to the community. I agree that the slight tweaks in the floor plan are improvements, and the facade elevation as well. So thank you.
I do have some questions, though. One of the things that I noticed was the window placement in the bedrooms on the 3rd floor. It seems, and maybe I'm just reading the elevation wrong, it seems like those windows are maybe in the middle of the wall, whereas I would expect it to be up higher. Is that?
In the master bedroom?
In the bedroom,
The third floor,
the additional, the 3rd floor.
Yeah, we have a light
Like a
across the top, a clear story that's
Yes.
facing north, correct?
Because in the plan, it looks like the windows are in the center of the wall, not towards the ceiling.
No, there are windows that are at the lower level that are sideways into a planter.
No, I'm
on the master bedroom, the 3rd floor.
I'm thinking the 3rd floor, the additional bedrooms, bedroom 2 and
The ones on the 2nd floor?
on the 2nd floor.
Okay,
No, I think it's the 3rd floor.
okay.
It's the 3rd floor. I don't know. I'm looking at page 19, but not of the presentation. Is there an elevation that you could show?
Okay.
Is it where the tub is? Is that where you're speaking?
No, I think it's the bedroom.
Okay, so.
If you,
in-
no, if you go back, it's the side.
It's the side.
Yeah. Do you see to the left? There's two banks of windows. There's a square one, and then above it there's a rectangular one.
Yes.
The rectangular one looks very low. Shouldn't it be higher towards the ceiling?
The rectangular one, it starts at the floor of the third floor.
Yeah, but isn't that the bedroom?
Yes?
So wouldn't the bed be against that wall? I was
No.
wondering why you're putting
No, the bed.
windows at the bottom.
Okay, hold on.
Uh-huh.
So the windows that are, the vertical one that you're referring to is where the tubs are.
I'm referring to the horizontal one after closer to the front of the building.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so you're talking about the front bedroom.
Yes,
Ah,
yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. We have the horizontal the horizontal band is at sort of headboard, above the headboard level, across where the bed is.
Ah,
It's not in front of
Right.
the bed. The bed, that slot is just above the
it's in,
headboard.
sort of in the middle of the wall if you were to walk into the room
Sort
as
of,
opposed to
yes.
closer to the top. Okay. I was just gonna recommend, again, like not binding, but for usability or comfort, what if the person that buys or rents the unit has a taller headboard, or it would be a little bit more versatile if the windows were up a little higher. I think it would also balance out the window placement in general, that they would all be on that floor, all the windows would essentially be starting at the same.
So
line.
I could say that we could take that window and put it up at the score line that's above and be done with the
Yes.
headboard issue.
Yes, yes. No, and I think that overall it would, because, one of the comments that we had last time was that you have these elements, the placement of the window it doesn't seem like there was as much intention necessarily. I mean, I'm sure there was, but it's not necessarily being conveyed. And certainly doing that, I always had questioned the relationships between the window placement and all the different facade elements, and that would help unify it.
We don't have an issue with that, but we do put windows in.
Yeah.
Intentionally, we don't.
Right.
Do them randomly,
Right.
and a lot of times,
Uh-huh.
in some of our projects, we've done windows, for example, in a living room, let's say, that are from the floor up to 3 feet, because, when you sit down in a living room couch or something, now all of a sudden you can see out.
Out there.
And you still have a wall that you can hang art on, et cetera, or shelves or furniture, whatever. So we do these kind of things so that we give different views and different experiences from the ordinary ones or the ones that everybody expects. And that's part of the composition of how we treat this. But we don't have an issue with moving that horizontal, window up to the score line above.
Okay, yeah, no, I understand. Thank you for the explanation. And the other, I guess to that point, so one of the things you talked about in your presentation with the front facade is that you didn't want to make that here, it's a duplex, and in the rear, you do have this almost like a fin that really does define the two different units.
Yes.
And so I was curious, though, why you didn't continue that in the front. In the front, you do have this other vertical, and whereas, before there was, the green wall did add some dimension and some interest, and now it just seems like you have this vertical, it doesn't go all, it just sort of ends. So I don't know if that's something that, you would continue, or again, I'd love to see a relationship between the front of the building and the back of the building.
Well, the thinking behind it is that while we do have those fins sticking out, because it is in fact a duplex, and we thought it was not as important, let's say, that the back of the building or the north side show the same kind of treatment as the south because it's not a public space, it's not a public side. But we wanted even though I was intent in making sure that the building in the front didn't look like two things mirrored, we did have that fin wall sticking out to sort of suggest that there are two units here rather than just one. It's sort of a symbolic separation. It wasn't intended to go all the way through, et cetera, as the building is in fact a duplex. So that was why those little, those fins were proposed.
Rogelio, can you explain the variance that is being requested?
They're requesting a waiver.
A waiver, I'm sorry.
The code requires that the ground floor have a minimum clearance of 14 feet above the design flood elevation. Because it's really just providing access and I believe a mailroom on the ground floor, it's not really a true usable space. They're requesting a waiver to reduce that to 12 feet. And given that it's not really a very important prominent space, we don't have any major concerns with that.
Thank you.
I also had a question about the materials. The trellis, I noticed that in the presentation that the trellis is made of metal, though I had initially assumed it was some sort of wood or wood product louver. Is the materials around the window frames, is that also metal or is that paint?
That's metal.
So in your presentation, whenever we see something that's a brown color, that's metal.
Yes.
It's not wood, it's not paint.
Right, because of, maintenance and, being where it is, we thought that it would be, we all love wood. But how long, when you refer to maintenance of the green wall,
Yeah.
the maintenance of wood is an issue also, so we made it all aluminum tubing.
Yeah, okay, just to clarify. And then what about the garage door? And
The garage
doors?
door would be a composite.
Yeah.
And it would be painted the same color as
the metal.
As the louvers, yeah. We do have, by the way, I don't know if you noticed, but we do have a small little green wall at the foyer entrance on the left side.
I did notice that. I personally think that the facade could still use a little bit of refinement in that it just, you took out the green and you just sort of put some, very plain tile. I don't know if maybe there's so much metal screening. I don't know what it is, but I do feel, I want to go with you in this sort of very simplified design, simplified elements. I think that's always a nice gesture, but I think it also has to have a little bit, maybe push the personality a little bit more. I don't really know how to advise you, but it just seems like the rest of the building, especially with the center, how you have, the trellis along, bisecting it, it's really sort of interesting, and I'd love to see something, I don't know, maybe there's just too much screening in the front. I wish I could be more articulate. I don't know, Shauna, do you have any thoughts or something?
Well, I guess I actually appreciate the simplicity of the design at that moment. So, and I feel like the moments of personality are the articulation of the fenestration as you move around the facade. And then I think that the rooftop deck has been sort of nicely designed, and the vertical trellis. So the horizontal to the vertical shift. I think that it's sharing a same language, but it's changing the elements just enough, and so I personally support it. Yeah.
I wonder
By the way,
if
the tile in the front was always there.
Oh, it was
wasn't-
behind the.
No, it was the green wall was
To the right.
of it.
Yeah, I think it was like symmetrical, but instead of it being the horizontal wood across, it was just green on the right, and then.
That's what I guess. It seems like now there's just more horizontals. Maybe part of the answer, and I'm not quite sure. It seems like on the balconies, the solid balconies on the front, some of them do have green hanging down or planters. Were you going to put planters in all of those balconies?
Yes, the reason the one in the center doesn't have that is because it's the landing of the going up on the stairs, so we couldn't put in a planter in the front part. It has them on the side.
On the side. Because I think that for me, that would, a little bit of green there would create that balance that I think I'm sort of offset the metal.
So I'll agree to this. How's
Okay.
this? We'll take, on the second level where the planter in the front doesn't have, I mean, where the railing on the left side doesn't have the plants, because it's a landing. On that floor level, what if I introduce a planter on the right side and remove the horizontal screens from a railing height? let's
Just
say?
in that,
In
so
that
you
corner.
put a
So
planter.
it breaks up the verticality of the corner a little bit.
I don't know, you know what, maybe can you bring up a picture and show me? I'm not following.
Okay, so can I point, do an arrow thing here? You know how to-
This would still be on the landing?
Okay, here we go. So my suggestion is I would take a planter in this, like this one,
Yeah.
and introduce it here. And turn the corner and get rid of some of these horizontal railings and sort of balance out, break up the verticality of the right side there with a planter, or not. I mean, I would be willing to do that. If that,
How would you get to that? What would be the access to that
from the back,
planter?
it's the front porch of all of the floors. There's a whole circulation space behind that, so you'd get access to it just like the other planters from behind.
I have to say, though, it's nice that you have, I think that would disrupt the rhythm that you've created.
I agree, but
The
I
cutout.
think if the issue
Yeah.
was that it was too many
Yeah.
horizontals, I would think that might be a sort of.
Okay.
What about like I don't want to, influence the design too much, but in the planting on the ground level, which is just, it's all low
Below.
level plants, like what about like a statement tree or something in that swath of landscaping with that? But I don't know if that'll detract from the simplicity of the structure.
I don't know where they would put that higher tree because you have the entrance, appears to be an entrance to the garage where the car is, and on the other side you have some trees. Yeah.
Raised bed.
Yeah. I don't know, there's something there
There's something
now.
to explore
There's
with it.
something, yeah.
No, it's all low level.
Yeah.
I think that's the interesting thing for me about designs that are simplified, that it's just a little tweak here, a little tweak there. It's all about the proportions. And, the little changes make a huge difference. So I don't know. Maybe something to sort of explore. That landing area, for me, it'd be really nice if there could be some sort of green or something there, but that's just,
Yeah,
you know.
I like her idea of some sort of landscape that in that area. But at the same time, in general, I think the simplicity, as Shayna said, and then when you mix it with the landscaping that you're providing in the plans, it's nice to me. I'm not
So
an
it was meant to be a
architect.
dialogue of
But I
lushness
think
and
the
simplicity.
combination of both, it doesn't overwhelm more. Maybe there's a little bit more siding than landscaping, but I think it's a good mesh and a good balance.
Thank you.
Personally.
I do, I feel like we gave feedback last time, and I think, you did a good job responding. So I am in support of approving. I don't want to cut anybody off if we feel like we need more conversation, but I would be in support of making a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, then I make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Can I make a clarification? Just, it includes moving, approve with moving that horizontal window
No,
up?
no conditions.
No conditions.
No
Well,
condition.
no, except we talked about the window.
Oh,
The
is
one
that what you're
window.
talking about?
Yeah,
The window?
sorry, the
Yeah,
window.
moving the window up.
That,
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
with the condition of moving the window up.
Sure.
In the front bedroom or however you identify it. Okay.
To match, then that would be to match the score line so that all windows start at the same level,
The head, the datum, yeah, the window
Horizontal
head.
windows.
the same horizontal point. Yep.
Okay, so I make a motion, excuse me, to approve with the condition that the horizontal ribbon windows, the datum line is shifted up to align with the others.
And I'll second again.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Okay, motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Okay. Moving on to DRB 230960, 704 84th Street, Denbora Bay 2.
The next item on the agenda is ZRB 23-0960, 704 84th Street, Denbora Bay 2. An application has been filed requesting design review approval for a new 4-story multifamily building with one or more waivers to replace an existing residence on site. This was continued from the July 2nd meeting.
Okay, so this item at the July 2nd meeting, the item was presented, there were some suggestions made, and the item was ultimately continued to today's meeting. The applicant did not provide the plans in time for us to consider them for this meeting. So we did suggest to them that they make a presentation to the board. This will be new to us as well. And that the board provide any feedback and continue the plans to the October 1st, 2024 meeting.
And before we start, are there any ex parte disclosures? Nope. Have all members of your team been sworn in?
Sorry?
Have you all been sworn in?
Yes.
Okay, you all here are, okay, perfect. I'll set the clock for 10 minutes.
So we're sharing now. There you go. Well, basically, I'm not sure how much you remember of the project. We were having, like the layout and the floor plans are the same. What we were trying to improve is the colors used in the facade, so it doesn't have such an industrial look. So we changed the colors to be lighter, more in beige or sand colors and white. And that's basically the main change that we did for this one.
No, I didn't accept it.
We also had a screening in front of the stairs that was very, very impacting too much. So we changed it and we have more visible the stairs. And the wood, like we have a sample here if you wanna look at it. It's lighter than the one that we proposed before, and there is no grays. It's all white in the exoskeleton that we were proposing. The idea is to make it more beach friendly.
What is that you're showing us? I'm sorry.
That will be the main wall of the building. Let's see if I can actually show here. There will be these walls here, like in.
So it's horizontal though, right?
It's horizontally, yeah. That will be. Yeah. We have, as we remove that screening that was covering the entire staircase, now we have a screen only in the access in the vestibule. You can see it from there. And the only darker color that it's brown, it's in the framings and in the roof of the access, the awning. It's an overhang on the entrance. And then the rest of the facade is the same, only with the change of colors to make it lighter.
Unfortunately, I wasn't here in July when you may have presented this. Can you show me what the surrounding neighborhood is and where it fits within the Normandy Isle area? The overall map?
The
if you
surrounding
have it?
neighbors, I'm not sure if I have the image here.
Please talk into the mic.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not sure if I have that context here in the presentation, no.
What do you have within the surrounding,
Single family,
across, behind, to the sides?
sí. But I cannot zoom in though. But I don't think I can zoom in. Yeah?
Bay Drive.
I'll just, no, it is an RM1 district. It consists of primarily 1 to 2 story apartment buildings. And there are some single-family homes mixed within, but it's primarily 1 to 2 story apartment buildings.
Okay.
You know, I hate to do this to you, but usually when usually, at least for me, I like to have a good amount of time to really look at and study the presentations so that we're able to provide the applicant with some, really productive, constructive feedback. And it's very hard for me to do this right on the spot. Just seeing, it's so different. What the changes you've made are so different. Yeah, I don't know if anything constructive is going to come out of this. I don't know if anybody else would just like a little bit more time with this to begin with. Yeah. I do have one question, just because I remember from the past, it seems like you lost that large trellis element, and so you just, okay.
Yes, basically, like it was very noticeable, and it was helping a lot with the industrial look that we were trying to avoid. That's why we changed it like.
Okay.
Like that.
Let's do it all, yeah.
Yeah, would you mind going back to the now stairway? And I wasn't here for July either, but it definitely does seem like an improvement. I guess just on the spot comments, the stairway to me seems a little out of place. I don't know if we need to like integrate materials into just what's like a white concrete facade as showing like to the street. I would suggest that as something to consider if we're taking this back. It looks just a little harsh and different. But I do like the main structure, the living structure.
Do you have a front view of a front rendering, not from the side? I think that might, because I also am wondering, I don't understand the relationship between the stairwell and the main structure, and it's a little hard to tell.
Straight to the front, no.
The stair form didn't change,
That was
right?
in it.
You
Go
just
back.
changed you just removed the trellis.
No, it's not. The elevations either.
It's just railing.
I think you passed one that may have,
Yeah, the trellis.
So here you can see
That's
the
just a
gap in
solid
between the
railing.
staircase and the apartments. If that helps.
I guess the question would be, is there an in-between? I think you're right. The feedback you guys got was it was heavy and industrial, and maybe that was the colors. It was exposed concrete and the scale of the screening. I'm wondering if there's a scale of screening or something that happens at those stairs that integrates with the rest of the language of the building. I don't know how you guys
and that
feel
maybe
about
looks
that.
less of a staircase.
Because I mean, the stairs have to be, I think we had this conversation last time, they have to be there, they have to be visible. And correct me if I'm wrong, you didn't change the plan of the stairs, right?
No,
We just removed
the layout is the same.
the
It's
black
trying to-
trellis. And so that metal that you have at the ground floor, that is the expanded metal as well, or it's
Yeah, it
something
is.
else? Yeah.
It is like more square. It's not the standard one.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean, I wasn't opposed to the design before. I agreed that it was less Miami Beach and more of a different place. But I think if now that it's white, I don't know how you guys would feel about integrating some of the screen back to the stairs so that maybe it has a softer touch.
Yeah, I think the fact that the stairs aren't attached to the building or aren't attached to the front, I think you didn't notice it as much before, but right now it looks very disjoint. And it's just sort of like, huh?
Like to make it's too obvious now that the stairs are. Like
Yeah,
trying
and then
to-
the front of the stairs, it's just, you know, what's that material? It's
like
just
the-
stucco.
like it's a stucco, yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't seem as you know, the one thing that the trellis was doing is it was unifying it. But I yeah. I also
probably
feel like
playing with the screen and not too solid and in light color.
yeah, I also feel like maybe your idea is not being expressed as well to us because there's not as many views of it. Like, you know, I don't really see what that's going to look like head on. And maybe this, if it was seen
Like a
straight
straight-
on, it would seem more integrated. But because of the angles of the renderings and the drawings, it's and you
hard to
can't
see
really
it.
see it in an elevation. So, I mean, this is going to be, it seems like it has to be continued anyway. You know, I would say when you resubmit it, or when you do, if you could add additional, so we really understand what the relationship is between this stairwell, which is a very predominant element in the
Yes.
design, with the rest of it, I would say. And is this, did the same thing happen with the other, the other one that
Same,
you did
you know, the
too?
next project, the same thing.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, yeah, at least just for me, like, I like to sit with it and think about it and take some time to really study it. So, yeah. you know.
Yes, in the last presentation, we have a chat with the neighbors after the meeting here. And they were requesting a little bit more of the old Miami. And that's why what we try to address is after that conversation, that they were like going to trying to make it more classic. And yeah, having that industrial look, it was difficult to match it. In the other one, we are trying to make more Miami colors, put in a little bit of color there. We have some samples too. But yeah.
I think also on the trellis piece, okay, that was removed from the stairs. It also was sort of very rigid, and had, you know, sort of this thin rectangular form, you know, that was separate from the rest of the building, which I think it's fine. I think it's a nice move to move the vertical circulation and allow light in between the living space and the stair. But maybe when you explore adding the trellis or parts of it back with the expanded aluminum, if it's painted white, could it, you know, instead of have its own form, could it somehow respond to the form of the stair and go from one landing to another? Maybe there's breaks in it. I mean, if we can ask for this, I don't know if it's technically possible as part of the process, but where you have images where maybe it's just different views of your current design, because I think the one view is like super distorted and dynamic and hard to read. So maybe you don't add it back, but just different views, and then you show us an option of like, but here's if we add this back, and here's how we were thinking about doing it, and we can review those sort of like options. Is that okay to ask for?
I also think, like, with a bold stair, there's so many possibilities, you know, and just sort of keep exploring that. Okay, so should we officially continue this one? Okay,
Yes.
so, okay. So would somebody like to make a motion to continue?
I so move.
Second.
That's to October 1st.
Yes. Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Sheldon, second by Ms. Butagawali. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. We will need everything by Friday the 13th. Actually, Sunday, so that we can start Monday. So we can start Monday immediately, because we need to get our reports out that week to the board members,
Perfect.
finalized, so.
Thank you.
I would also, especially because our agenda is so long today, I think we should just continue the next one without maybe, and then, you know, we'll give you plenty of time next time to really get comments and thoughts about the revision for Den Bay 3.
And you want to take a quick look now?
I mean, I think it would just be a lot more efficient if we would do it all together during the next, you know.
Have you made some changes since July to Bay 3?
Procedurally, I think we have to call in that case to the record.
Here's one of the owners that wants to speak.
Hi, how are you? Hi, everybody. You know, we were moved last time because of the lack of quorum.
Yes.
I mean, now we're moving everything back to October, so it's everything, you know, like you.
No, I
it's
understand your
time, It's money,
concerns.
we're the investors, you know, we're trying to move this along, so we're trying to.
I
get
understand
this-
your concerns, but it was your team that turned in the materials too late for us to review.
Right, but
You know,
they-
and we need the time. We can't give you the feedback
Right.
that your design team needs that's
I
constructive
understand.
and helpful without having a chance to look at it. I mean, I personally, I can't speak about the, like, I'll spend an hour looking at these plans and really, really trying to
I
get
do
stuff.
understand,
I
but the
can't
previous
do that.
meeting, we were ready and there wasn't quorum.
I understand that, and that's not, you know, I apologize for that happening. There was an emergency of one of our board members, but we weren't going to approve at that time anyway. You needed to make
Right,
these
but we
changes.
were gonna get the right comments
Trust me
to
when I
work
say,
on it.
I would love to be able to approve your project today, but we didn't have the material in front of us on time to be able to review it. And so I really can't approve something that hasn't been, had the
Well,
proper
can
time
I-
to review it.
Can you at
Everybody
least
else,
look at it?
whether we look at it today or whether
And
we
give
look
you-
at it tomorrow, I mean,
give
right
comments.
now, whether we look at it now or whether we look at it in a month, it's still gonna be the same comments, it's still gonna be the same process. The comments that we had last time still stand, and if they've made if they've made the changes that we've requested, then it will be moved forward. Again, this is because the presentation was delivered a little bit late. I know all of us would really like to help you and to move it on so that it wouldn't come back, because everybody is very busy and we want to pass these, but we do need some time to review. And there's a lot of other people on our docket that are waiting to be heard that did turn in their materials on time, where we did have a chance to review it and we can provide some constructive feedback to them.
Let me just ask you this, did you make any changes to the Dembora Bay 3 since the
Yes.
July meeting?
Yes.
As you did with Dembora Bay 2?
Yes, because it was also industrial look, and we changed it,
From the
actually, we
initial
added,
review.
like,
But I guess what I'm
Okay.
saying is, and then at the end of what we did, we lost quorum, but then they still stayed after and we gave them feedback,
Right.
which was great. And then now the deadline has been missed and you're asking us to review now, whereas everybody else followed the deadline and had their materials in. I just feel like we keep making exceptions for you and, you know, you missed the
let me-
deadline.
no, the idea was to have a quick feedback as we did last time.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that, you know, us saying.
Let me ask this. I don't know what the board's, entire board's pleasure is, but we gave some feedback based on some of the changes made on on the changes made on the Dembora 3, on Dembora 2. Does it make sense to just quickly look at this Dembora 3 and see what changes have been made and if there's any additional comments that they can take back with them and bring forward to the October meeting?
I mean, we just went through that process with the other building, and I don't think that we were able to provide very constructive comments. We were all a little confused by it.
On
to
the
have a
contrary, I
chance
think
to
you
really-
did. You just brought some comments that we could take back to the board.
Okay. I mean, I'm just trying to follow the procedure that everybody else, every other applicant has to follow. So I think that we should move on, and when you guys come back, we will give it all of our attention, just like, you know, even with the comments that we just gave, the project had to be continued.
I understand.
And what I think is that the same thing is gonna happen again. So why should we use our time now when many
Why,
other
the,
people
the
are
same
waiting?
way you used my time when we came on time and there was no quorum because this gentleman left.
Right, I mean,
You know what I
I
mean?
can't control that.
No,
You
I
know, none of
understand.
us can control
So at
that, and
least,
I'm sure
you know, we
it
put
was
our
an
time, you
emergency.
put
He
you put your
apologizes,
time.
it wasn't intentional. At this point, we've spent more time than I wanted to talking about this project, and we've gotten nowhere. So I'd like to know if another member of the board can call make a motion to continue.
We need to call the item before we make the vote
Okay,
to continue.
I will call the item. So I'd like to call DRB 230961-2125 Bay Drive, Dembora Bay 3.
I'll just read it into the record. An application has been filed requesting design review approval for a new 4-story multifamily building with one or more waivers to replace an existing residence on the site.
No one's called in or anything? I personally, I'm sorry, I don't mean to, I wasn't here in July. So whatever comments were made to all of you in July, if you've made some of the changes to respond to those comments, if we can take 5 minutes quickly to just see what you've done, and if there's any other possible comments that can be given to you that you can bring back in October, as we did with Dembora too, like for example with the staircase or the stairwells, then we do so. I don't know the thoughts on the rest of the board on this. That would be my thought for it. And then obviously we would still have to continue because you have not submitted the paperwork.
No, I understand. The idea was to have, like last time, as it changed, to have a feedback, and because of the neighbors too, to make sure we were addressing that.
So at this point, I guess, do we, what?
Well, we still
I
would
mean,
have to
I
read
think
everything
what
and
we
go
should
through
be-
it the same as we did with the prior case.
Right. I think
Rogelio's gonna have to do his presentation. I'm gonna have to ask the disclosure question. And then we can open it up for 10 minutes or a shorter time if the chair wants it shorter.
What does the board want to do?
I think it should be continued, and we should really treat it with a lot of
We
thought.
would need a
board
motion
next
to
time.
continue,
What-
which would
what
take
other-
priority.
I'm sorry, what?
Would need a motion to continue
I so move.
Okay.
and a second
I second.
and a vote.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Continue to October 1st.
Thank you. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Okay, so now we're going on to new applications. Okay, I think we probably have time for one more before lunch. Okay with that? Okay, good. So DRB 240995, 2334 Alton Road.
All right, so the next item on the agenda is DRB 23-0995, 2334 Alton Road. An application has been filed requesting design review approval for the construction of a new two-story addition to an existing two-story residence, including one or more waivers.
Okay, so this is an existing single-family home. The applicant is proposing to build an addition to the home. Because the extent of the second floor of the new addition exceeds 60 feet, they would be required to have an open space of regular shape, a minimum depth of 8 feet, equivalent to 1% of the lot area. The applicant is providing an open courtyard, however, it's only 5 feet deep. It does not comply with the minimum requirement. As a result, they are seeking a waiver of that requirement. And that's why they're here before the board today. The applicant is complying with the intent of that requirement, which is for there to be movement in the facade. Given that they comply with the intent of the requirement, staff is not opposed to the request for the waiver. The waiver is, they are still breaking up that design, breaking up that facade, and complying with that intent. So with that, staff recommends that the application be approved, subject to the conditions in the attached draft order.
Okay, and are there any ex parte communications and/or disclosures at this time? No. Okay. Has every member of your team been sworn in this morning?
I don't think you were sworn. I was partially sworn, so if you want to do it, go ahead.
Then, for your benefit, if you could, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you'll be giving in this proceeding is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. You may lower your hand. And I'll set the clock at 10 minutes.
Okay, my name is Juan Berry. I'm the architect for the project with offices at 2640 South Bayshore Drive, Miami, Florida. And let me just briefly take you through all the pages so that you understand the project, because it's an existing house. And the reason that we can provide the 8 feet is that the house, it's already 70 feet long, plus the porch, plus the balcony. So let's go through pages. Let me go just right next to you. A5 is the existing ground floor, and you can see the length of the house is already 70 feet, plus the length of the porch is 11. Go to the next page. That's the second floor, which is also more than 70 feet, plus the balcony, which is 11. Go to the next elevation. That's the roof, that's existing, that's the existing elevation.
Please use the microphone.
I'm so sorry. Oh, that's the existing,
If you can speak into the microphone,
south
please.
and east elevation. Oh, you can hear me in the microphone? Okay, sorry. Okay, that's better. So go to the next one. That's the existing north and existing west, and the materials of the existing house. Go next. Okay, and these are the existing pictures of the rear of the property, and the open porch, and the balcony above. So now we're going to show you the proposed. That's the proposed, no, that's the second floor, proposed ground floor and the stairs going up to the guest bedroom being proposed on the second floor. Go to the second floor. That's the second floor, that's the stair. Right below the stair will be the actual open space that we are providing. And you can see that, you know, it's an existing house. There's no, even if I were to propose it on the addition, I'm already past the 70 feet. So this is the reason why we are requesting the variance. Go to the next one. That's the roof. That's the proposed elevation, the same thing, the proposed north and proposed west. Go to the next one. And that's the proposed south elevation. Go to the next one. And the picture, go to the fourth. To this one. 18. They didn't put 18 in the presentation? I guess not.
Let me check if it's in another. No.
No, they didn't put it.
For us, there's two PDFs. Do you guys have both PDFs?
Do you have in your end 18?
Yeah, there's
So
two
you can see
PDFs.
the proposed, you can see the proposed, and it's pretty much in scale. It's a small house. And like I said, we're sort of in a position that this house was probably built prior to this condition being, okay?
There it is, yeah.
And that, the rectangular box, that's what exceeds the code.
Exactly.
That
right
small
below
section.
That's the area that we're going to provide. We're providing more than the 1%, but we just can't do the 8 feet. We can provide with the 1%, but to do the 8 feet, you have to destroy, then now you're demolishing a big portion of the house. And I think that the facade is not a critical facade. I mean, I've dealt with this in bigger projects where it's a really big house, and I understand the purpose of breaking up the volume, but this is a small house, and it's existing. And you got 8.2.2, which shows you in the blue area, the open area that we're proposing.
And so how much longer is the structure going to be with this addition? I know the rule is it can't be longer than 60 feet. How long would it now be?
The total length of the thing is existing, and it's 81 feet. The ground floor is 81 feet. The second floor will be 81 feet.
The existing.
The existing is 81 feet right now.
And what are you proposing?
The same. We're just
The
basically converting. The covered terrace below becomes an office, and the balcony above becomes a bedroom with the stair.
Right. So in the other drawing that you had I guess what I'm asking is how much beyond, in that rectangle that you showed us, if this is what is exceeding, how is it 3 feet more? Or you're saying that the entire length of the house is already 80 feet and you're adding to it?
No, we're not adding to it. We're just
You're making the wall solid where it used to be open.
Yeah.
So you're making more of a solid wall.
Exactly.
Right. So you're adding to that.
But
Right.
you're using the existing foundations.
We're using the existing foundation. We're not adding new foundation.
I see. And then what you're saying is the house is already longer than longer than it should be?
Yeah, longer than it should be without providing the 8-foot open space.
I see, I see.
They have, I believe they have 5 feet, but they're, the code requires 3 feet, and the DRB has the ability to waive that. So it's not a variance, it's a waiver that's.
So they're just going 5 feet beyond where they should, no.
They're short 3 feet for their open space requirement.
Go back to 2.2. I do want to say that you could have done a way better job with diagrams because,
Yeah.
like, just so here, that purple is where they're showing us
Right.
that's an existing relief area. And that's all that we're getting, and it's only 5 feet deep instead of 8 feet deep.
Correct.
Oh.
So the footprint of the house isn't changing, and because it existed before this code, and so they're saying, hey, we're gonna use that area to meet the code, but we can't meet the current code with the depth. But yeah, I think very simple diagram, just in the future of like, here's the plan, and I know you had the existing and proposed plans, but they're all the same line weight, they're just like, it's a little.
You're certainly right. It should have been done that way. The existing, the proposed, and in every other board, that's the way they like to see it, because that way it makes it nice and clear. But you're right. I tried to do my best, going through one and the other one, but it is. That's the open area that we're proposing.
And they're within the square footages, and like, there's no variances, it's just the waiver in this, yeah, so, I mean, I propose to approve the waiver, or the proposal.
Second.
I would also, if you don't mind to, I know there's what I think would also help also meet the intent of the code is if in the addition, right now you have on the first floor just one small window. If you added a second, then I think that would also help you meet the intent of the code. And if you go to, what elevation? Yeah, the proposed, at least in the plans I'm looking at, it's A15 or page 6.
We're not controlling it from here.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, so if you were to add a window, sort of a little bit underneath the stairs, though, that would also, I think, help you meet the intent of the code because it's not all such a solid wall.
Well, I think that
There's a door there.
That stair is not really, I don't think it's completely solid. And we did put a window on the bottom of it. There's another
Right.
window on the top. But I mean, if the issue, let me see something. Go to the floor plan, to the ground floor.
I think there's a closet there on the interior. There was an office and a closet.
Door to something.
Okay, it's a closet. But if you feel that we should put a window in, I don't mind putting a window inside of a closet. It gives it natural
I think
light.
that would help also,
Yeah.
again, like
If
meet
that's-
the
if
intent of the
that's-
code.
If that's a condition to approve it, I don't have a problem with that.
Okay, sorry, I interrupted the motion.
Yeah,
Or,
we
Sean-
just skipped a few things because the presentation's closed, but we have to
Oh,
open it
sorry,
up for
you're right,
public.
you're right.
Kind of morphed a lot of stuff into one
I should say
discussion.
too, is there anything else that you want to add to your presentation?
No, that's it. I'm done with my presentation.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other comments, public comments? Oh, yes, okay, please come forward. I apologize for
He's the
skipping
owner.
that. Oh, okay.
And sir, have you been sworn in?
Yeah, I was sworn in.
Okay,
in
perfect.
the beginning.
Thank you.
Yeah, just, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but it's really, we don't really want to have a window in the closet. It makes it insecure, in the sense of like, we don't want to have a opening into it. And also that particular part looks out into essentially what is like a covered garage for the neighbor. It's just like a storage thing he has out there, so it's not even a good view. I'd prefer it if you could approve it without that, so that's my, I don't see that being an important thing, I'm sorry.
Thanks, well, and that, I mean, that is the intent of the code is that the person next door is not looking onto a solid wall, but if you're saying it's solid from their end, they're not looking anyway. Okay.
The guy's house is way to the front.
Okay, thank you for your comment. Okay, any other public comments? No? Public? Okay, I'm going to close the public portion, open it up to the board for discussion. It seems like we've discussed, sorry for the out of order, we jumped the gun.
I think there's a pending motion and a
A
second.
motion has been made.
We have a motion and a
Seconded.
second
Okay.
for approval. All
Guess
those in
we do a
favor?
roll call?
Aye.
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 Okay, enjoy your lunch.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
Okay. I wonder if we have time for another one?
Yes, lunch hasn't arrived yet. It should be here so if we want to continue, we can.
The next item in the agenda is DRB 24-1002, 1801 Purdy Avenue. An application has been filed requesting design review approval for the replacement of an existing fixed storefront with a new operable storefront system.
Okay, so let me just for background state that this item is here because the code requires that if a commercial use is proposing operable windows and it's located within 300 feet of a residential district, it is required to be approved by the DRB. So this applicant had received a permit to replace the windows back in 2022. The windows were replaced, and they were replaced inadvertently with operable windows, according to the applicant. So they have come in for an after-the-fact approval for the operable windows. Essentially, that's it. These are windows that can open. That would allow theoretically music to escape if they're playing any but this area only allows for background music. Would allow for any other service to happen between the windows.
Rogelio, and
yes.
the residential area you're talking about is the condominium across the street.
Correct. This is located in the Sunset Harbor neighborhood on Purdy Avenue, and it's across the street from the RM3 district, where you have several apartment buildings and condominium buildings that are located within 300 feet of the site. The windows that were in place are fitting for the structure, so there's no design issues. They don't look any different than a fixed window, and staff is not opposed to them. The applicant has indicated that they are proffering to close the windows no later than 10 p.m. each night, and staff has incorporated a condition in the draft order indicating that they have to be closed by 10 p.m. every night. So with that, staff recommends that the application be approved, subject to the conditions in the attached draft order.
And before we begin, any ex parte disclosures? No, having none, okay. Michael, 10 minutes, okay?
Yes, that's fine. Good morning, Madam Chair, Board Member Staff, Michael Larkin, 10 South Biscayne Boulevard, here representing the applicant. Next slide. So with regard to the project team, it's Purdy Avenue LLLP is the owner of this property. The principal is Brad Safechick. He's been around for a long time. The tenant is the most famous tenant in Sunset Harbor, Sardinia Restaurant, which we've all gone to off and on since 2006. It's a great restaurant. And I'm here today with my colleague, Michael Yiannopoulos. Next slide. So again, Sardinia has been around the block for a long time. You know, restaurants typically come and go in 5-year cycles, but they've managed to hang on since 2006. They recently gotten a special award in 2024. Next slide. So with regard to the location, it is on the east side of Purdy Avenue. The zoning is CD2, just north of 18th Street, and across the street from the Sunset Harbor Towers, the South and North Tower. Next slide. This is a plan view site plan, a little bit confusing, but on the left-hand side is Purdy Avenue, noting that those windows will be operable. On the south side, on 18th Street, that label indicates, of course, that those windows will be not, while they're new, they're going to be non-operable. Next slide. We also took the opportunity to fix the front of the restaurant on the left-hand side as it was before, on the right-hand side as it is now. Next slide. This is the before on the left. As you can see, the difference is imperceptible. On the right is as it is now. Next slide. This is what it looks like if you're looking from the Sunset Harbor, from the park basically, looking eastward. Next slide. This is 18th Street before and after, kind of, there's a strange thing that they've kind of pushed and made more streamlined. Next slide. This gives you an idea of how they work. They'll just, from the middle, they'll be pushed in either direction and just kind of line up behind the last window on either side. And as Rogelio said, we like integrated into this order a condition of approval that says they have to shut at 10 p.m. every night. We met with the guardians of this neighborhood, who are Marilyn and Sarah. They come out for all these hearings, and we sat down with them, Sardinia, we explained it to them, we opened the windows, and they said the only thing they wanted in return was that they shut at 10 p.m. every night, and we, of course, said that's fine. Next slide. And that's the voluntary condition. Next slide. And that's all we have for you. I hope I got done before your lunch got here. And that's all we have.
Thank you very much. Are there any other members of the public wishing to speak?
We have Marilyn Frundlich online.
Very good. Okay.
Good morning, Marilyn. I'm going to need to swear you in before you address the board.
Go ahead, please.
Marilyn?
She's there.
Yes?
Speak
Hi.
up.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you'll be giving in this proceeding is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, I'm going to set the clock at 2 minutes.
Fine, thank you. Sarah and I have met with the applicant, and we have no issue whatsoever with the windows. They prefer to close them at 10 p.m., so if there's any normal noise coming out of the restaurant, we will not hear it in the neighborhood. I have to say that this has been an amazing operator from day one. I was involved in the original opening of Sardinia when they were planning to open the restaurant and the windows and all of that. So for so many years, they have operated beautifully in the neighborhood. And I think this is a good thing that they're doing, and we have no issue or opposition to these windows. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm now going to is there anybody else online? No. Okay.
Their hands are raised.
I'm now going to close the public portion, open it up to the board for discussion.
I don't have a problem with approving this. I think the windows are only going to be open some portions, some months of the year. But you know, if the neighborhood is okay with the window closing at 10 p.m., I'm sure that if they want to change that, they'll come back to you, and I'm sure that arrangements will be made, so.
I just have a question. So why is it being, explain the process of the post-approval?
What's that?
Why are we reviewing it now that it's already been installed?
It was a mistake by the window installer. They just.
I kind of want you guys to go on record to be like, it wasn't a mistake. Detailing fixed windows and operable windows, the jam set, everything's different. So I think it's great that they're operable, and I have zero issues with it, but.
If you have a few hours, I'll go through the whole sordid history of this massive confusion that took place, but it's after the fact.
It is. I appreciate the operable windows, but I, as an architect, can't agree with the fact that it was a mistake.
Also speaks to, here's a good neighbor, they met with the community, they resolve the issue. You know, it could be that as a way to prevent the opposite from happening. You know, this happens to be a success story that, you know, it's a little bit more procedure than wasn't,
A good mistake.
Does anybody want to make a motion or?
I'll make a motion that we approve.
Second.
Second by Mr. Sheldon. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No.
Thank you all. The mistake was not coming here first.
Yeah.
The tenant and landlord always wanted operable windows, and they told the window installer that. It's just when the window installer first installed the windows, they were fixed. And everyone's like, what the heck? And so it was a mess. But thank you all for resolving the mess. Appreciate it.
Great day. Yeah, I think, should we break for lunch now? the next one might be a little bit longer, or?
I don't think lunch has arrived yet.
Okay.
So let's keep going.
You know what we could do?
Yes.
I was gonna say too, the next one, or the one after, the Lincoln Road, the signage, that's also not gonna take very long. Maybe we can do that one and get it over with, and then take our lunch break and come back, and then talk about this other.
Getting
Yeah.
it over with is something I support wholeheartedly, Madam Chair.
So
morning, Graham.
DRB 231029, 1200 Lincoln Road, and 1628-1634 Alton Road.
Okay. For the record, the next item on the agenda is DRB 24-1029, 1200 Lincoln Road, and 1628, 1634 Alton Road. An application has been filed requesting design review approval and related variances for a hanging sign to exceed the maximum allowable signage area for a previously approved 5-story commercial and hotel building.
Okay, so this is, we were talking about it earlier, this is the Citizen M Hotel. The applicant is proposing a hanging sign, and the code has some very strict provisions for hanging signs, of which they are seeking variances. And this, so this is, the first one is a variance to exceed by 5.82 square feet, the maximum side area per side of 3 feet for the installation of a hanging sign. They're requesting a variance to exceed the text height of 6 inches. So the M is obviously very large, exceeds 6 inches, so they say they need a variance for that. And then they are seeking a variance to allow for the internal sign illumination, which the code prohibits illumination of hanging signs. The applicant is not proposing any other major signage for the Citizen M Hotel, so this will be the predominant signage for the Citizen M Hotel. And so it's consistent with their branding, with their identity, and so staff is not opposed to the variance. And staff does recommend approval of the variance and the design of the sign. Staff would note that we've since been notified that the sign has already been installed. We have some pictures of it, so we will be invoicing for an after-the-fact variance, which is 3 times the fees before an order is recorded.
Sure.
So just noting that.
I know Ms. Marie's gonna love that one too.
With that, staff recommends approval of the proposed variance.
And before we begin, any ex parte disclosures? Nope. Okay.
Steve, I do need to be sworn in.
Okay, you got it. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you'll be giving in this proceeding is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, and I'll set it at 10 minutes.
Right. Good morning/afternoon, Graham Penn, Burkow, Riddell, Fernandez, Larkin, Tappanes, 200 South Biscayne Boulevard. If we could put my slides up, I'm going to take you through it quickly. But just to highlight this, as Rogelio noted, this sign we're requesting today is the only ground level sign that this use has. The sign code allows projecting signs, wall signs, of larger, significantly larger than what hanging signs are permitted. Simply because this is a hanging sign, we can illuminate it and we're limited in size. So that's why we've had to bring this application. So if you go past the property, there's not going to be a wall sign, there's no projecting sign, et cetera. This is it. And this serves, as you'll see hopefully in this presentation, a very important wayfinding function for the use, given how tucked away it is. So really this is just as a really serving to notify people that it's there if they're looking for it. So 1212 Lincoln, as you all know, southwest corner of Lincoln Road and Alton. 2 phases. Phase 2 is a Citizen M, which is now open. I suggest you go visit it. It's actually a very beautiful space. This is what the building looks like, looking southwest from Lincoln. The front along Alton is all commercial storefronts, and then vast majority of the Lincoln Road frontage is commercial storefronts that are not the hotel. The hotel is the upper levels, as you can see, and the entrance is far on the western side, basically where that cherry picker is on the building. This is an older picture. I'll show you what it looks like built. This is just so you know, you may remember the original plan for the project had this stairwell that connects phases 1 and 2. That is now complete. To the left there, so you're looking at Alton there. There's commercial spaces on your left-hand side. This is a view of the building looking north along Alton. That's the redesigned bus stop that we've done with FDOT and the city. This is the view along Lincoln. This is similar to what you saw when you looked at the Ike kiosk, because that's where it's basically going, right in the foreground there. If you, I don't think you can even see it from where you're sitting, but if you squint, there's a guy who's in pink all the way down there. That's the entrance to the hotel. So at the hard corner from Alton, you've got all that run, and you'll see there's no portion of that the hotel that actually peeks out beyond the storefronts. This is what the ground floor plan looks like. On the left-hand side is the Lincoln Road frontage. You can see, again, as you go on from the top to the bottom, it's all those commercial storefronts that are going to be filled with other tenants. And then you have the steps up to the hotel, which is set back. So you have the steps, and then you can see the entrance. So it's about 135 feet from the edge of the intersection to the hotel door. And that, of course, leaves us with a significant problem for people coming back home at night, trying to figure out where the hotel is when they're trying to check in, people dropping their friends off or picking their friends up, Ubers, etc. So what we wanted is a very subtle sign, a hanging sign located at the main entrance. So this is where that sign is, and you'll see it in the plan. So it's a very small 30-inch square sign, illuminated sign that's hanging from the upper element. There it is again, in elevation, pushed back, and my little red thing is thicker than it actually is, but it's pushed back off of the front. This is what it looks like. The outer rim of the enclosure is over 30 inches, but the sign, and as Rogelio noted, we have to request relief from the size of the lettering because the M is bigger than 6 inches. Here it is in context, so this really brings it home. You can see the front of the building. That storefront system is basically way beyond where the sign will be. So we're right up at where the stairs are. So that's our presentation. We have folks online. I think Luis Castillo, at least the project manager, is available if you have any questions. But as I noted, the importance of the sign is for wayfinding for our customers. And the ultimate sign program for the ground level here is way below what we could get if this was projecting or if it was a wall signs or if we put it behind the glass. So it really is not designed to overwhelm the neighborhood, and it is essentially invisible from the street unless you're really looking for it. So with that, I'm here for questions. Our folks online are here for any questions you have. I'd like to reserve time for rebuttal, and we'd ask for your approval this morning or this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any members of the public wishing to speak?
No one has their hands raised online.
Okay, great. I'm closing the public portion, opening it up to the board for any comments or questions.
I concur with staff's analysis that the regulations present a practical difficulty as they prevent pedestrian wayfinding from Lincoln Road, and would note, as staff notes, that the proposed sign and location, although it's an actual sign and location now, are proportional to the scale of the building and will not create any negative impacts to the surrounding area. And so I support the grant of this variance and, encourage the other members of the board to do so as well.
I support the sign as well.
Someone like to make a motion?
I motion to approve.
I'll second that.
Motion by Ms. Meyer, second by Ms. Lewin. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And lunch is still not here, huh?
Gabby went down to check what's going on with Taste. It should, hopefully will be here very soon,
Okay.
but it's not here yet.
Okay, so should we continue? Does anybody need a break or should we continue? What's the general feel here?
Let's just finish.
Okay, power through. Okay, next. Well, it was nice when we were in the convention. It wasn't as cold, and so I got to.
It is beyond cold today. You're not cold? I'm freezing. I mean, I am literally, yeah.
Do you want me to? Okay, the last item in the agenda is DRB 24-1026, 94 Palm Avenue. An application has been filed requesting design review approval for the construction of a new two-story residence with an understory level, including a variance to permit an existing structure to remain within the front and side yard setbacks, a variance to allow driveway to exceed the maximum allowable width, and one or more waivers to replace an existing residence.
Okay, so thank you. So this is a proposal for a new two-story home, and it has multiple detached structures. It is replacing an existing home on Palm Island. The applicant is here before the board because it is an understory home, which requires approval of the board. It does have 2 design waivers and 2 variances as well. The home features the understory is raised to 16 feet NGVD. So it's offering a 7-foot freeboard. So it does for resiliency purposes. It's providing a lot of space between that first habitable level. Given that it's on an island, that's a very important element. The design is a contemporary architectural style. Has some cantilevered volumes, pronounced floor slabs, and stone-like finishes. It does feature large format tiled walls. And several other elements, which I'm sure the architect will go through, that provide for a visually interesting home for the lot. The applicant is requesting some design waivers. The first waiver is similar to the one that we just recently discussed. The frontage exceeds 60 feet in length, and so they are requesting a waiver of the requirement for the open space that's equivalent to 1% of the lot area and 8 feet in depth. They are providing movement along that facade, so it's complying with the intent. It's not going to be a very large blank wall. So staff is supportive of that waiver. The other waiver is related to a requirement that in understory homes, all parking be located underneath the understory. The applicant is requesting that there be a carport on the side of the lot, which would allow for the parking of a van that has a higher elevation. So they need a little bit more room than what the understory would provide for in order to be able to park that van, and staff is supportive of the waiver. The applicant is seeking 2 variances as well. The variances are related to the ability to keep an existing structure that's located at the front of the lot. So that structure is a 2-story structure. The ground floor is parking, and then the upper floor, I believe, will be used as a guest house. So the issue is that the home requires a 30-foot setback. The new home complies with that, but this existing structure is located near the front and is only providing a 5-foot 2-inch setback. The other requirement is related to the side yard. The existing structure is within the side yard setback as well, so they need relief from that. The applicant will be modifying, recladding this structure so that it fits in architecturally with the new home, and they will be providing additional landscaping on the frontage to screen this structure from view of the public right-of-way. Given that it's an existing structure, staff is supportive of keeping existing buildings, so staff is supportive of these variances. And again, the rest of the structure complies perfectly with those setback requirements. So with that, staff recommends that the application be approved, including the variances subject to the conditions in the attached draft order.
Before we start, any ex parte disclosures? Nope. Okay. 10 minutes, okay, Michael?
Yes, sir.
Perfect.
And I see your lunch has arrived, so I don't want to get cold, so we're going to zoom through this presentation.
And every member of your team's been sworn, right?
What's that?
Sworn? No. Okay. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you'll be giving in this proceeding is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, board member, staff. Michael Larkin, 200 South Biscayne Boulevard, here representing the applicant. With me today is Ronaldo Borges and Emilio Garcia. I often worked with Ronaldo in the past. It's been a long pause, so I'm excited to work with him on this project. He's a great partner to work with, and it's always a privilege. Matthew Lewis is our landscape architect. He's also in the house. Hello, Matthew. And last but not least, my colleague, Emily Balter. You know, the zoning in Palm Island is interesting in that the eastern half is much more generous zoning than the western half. And it's with these larger lots that are here, Star Island, a portion of Pine Tree Drive north of Arthur Godfrey, and on Lagorce Island, that the better, more creative architects can really do wonders with these single-family homes. And that's what Ronaldo has done here. This is a really interesting home, as Rahelia has described to you all. There's different requests. One is for the understory, which is pretty common. The second one is a waiver to permit one parking space outside of the understory for an ADA accessible van. The third is required open space, that notch in the east elevation that Rahelio described, and that Ronaldo will go into greater detail about. And the last one are a couple of variances just to keep a non-conforming structure in the front of our yard to provide a guest house and a parking area. That's it. I'd like to turn it over to Ronaldo and have him walk you through his design.
Thank you, Michael. Good afternoon. Always interesting to be right before lunch, so I'm gonna go fast. So as Michael was saying, I'll walk you through the architecture and the complementary landscape that Matthew will also present to you briefly. As you can see from Palm Avenue, there are multiple layers of landscaping. We like to show some of these images with and without the sort of the final layer of trees, so you can start to see how it affects the architecture, and I think really complements it. So as an understory strategy, we're racing up this house. It's an understory for many reasons, mostly for resiliency, and then it allows us to kind of use the understory for additional outdoor living. Young family, super excited to be designing their dream home here with their children. So it's a house that's full of lots of activities and lots of fun. As you can see, we're playing with some forms, like that volume that is suspended is sort of, supported by this sculptural column that is also wrapped in a Venetian stucco. The primary stone material, as you can see here, the bluish stone is actually going to be state-of-the-art porcelain, and we have the samples here for you to see and touch, mostly because of the durability of the porcelain, and that technology has advanced so much that you really can't tell the difference, and it just performs better in this environment. We also have the vertical element, these louver elements, that we have a sample of the material for you to look at and touch as well. And those sort of add to that texture and that layering as you come up to the main entrance. The main entrance takes you over a cascading fountain element as well. Here it is with the final layering of the internal landscape. From this side, again, without the trees and with the trees, and you kind of see what happens when you add that additional layer of trees, and Matthew has selected these beautiful gumbo limbos that will mature and really help to layer the architecture along the main road. Internally, as you enter, we have this beautiful paved area to allow the cars to come into the understory, and also to the, there's a guardhouse that is being retained. And we're basically just modifying its architecture to kind of blend it into the new architecture, and that stores 3 additional cars. As you can see, the floating steps as you come up to the entry over the fountain elements, and then at the far end of this thing will be a pickleball court. Couldn't keep the pickleball court out of this. This is why this house is so much fun. But it's a small court on the side, and it's screened off, so the landscaping really makes it disappear in that front area. With this blended exposure to the Biscayne Bay environment, you'll see it with and without the landscape layering. As you can see, the landscape layering really adds a lot. On the left side, you have more of a cabana room, to kind of enjoy the bay and be closer to the water from the primary house. On the left, on the right side, you have a fitness center and a spa that is also within the sort of the accessory building allowance for its setback, so it kind of brings it a little bit closer to the water. They're both at 10 feet NGBD, which is the minimum the Florida Building Code allows us. And then the main house is up, with the understory allowance and maximizing the views out to the water. There's a primary level of public rooms, and then the private rooms on the uppermost level with a private terrace towards the right. And then, of course, you can't miss, having this beautiful terrace on the rooftop to enjoy the beautiful panoramic view of the skyline of both Miami Beach and the city of Miami. Moving forward here, so you can see a lot of pools, a lot of water, which is really the reason why people come to our beautiful city. And this particular pool also has a bottom that comes up, and for safety reasons, the pool kind of disappears for the children. You can see a sunken fire pit that also allows you splendid views of the bay and the Port of Miami and the skyline of the city, with a pool coming right up to it. And then the primary stair that takes you up to the main deck of the house that also has these aluminum trellis elements that allow for more usage of that space, to protect it from the sun. So you can see here from the understory, this is the view you get out to the water. So, you're at that lower level, which is kind of the lowest level of the site, overlooking the pool into Biscayne Bay. A little bit upper deck view. So this is a deck above the primary deck overlooking, the splendid scenery of the bay and the Port of Miami. Another view of the same deck. The understory. So the understory really becomes a very active, sheltered area to enjoy the pools, the spa, and some entertainment with the family down below. This is the opposite view of that, kind of looking into the understory. We're going to have a 300-inch wide digital screen to view movies there and enjoy that space, during the day and during the night. Becomes a very active, festive environment. This is more of a private terrace right off the master bedroom suite that also enjoys the view of the bay. You can see the site here. The context is a double lot, 200 feet in width by like 320 in depth. And contextual elevations kind of give you a reference of the current ever-changing context. And then this kind of gives you the site of the understory, and Matthew will go into more detailed presentation of the landscape, but it kind of gives you a sense of the texturing and the way we're dealing with the landscape environment. The main level, big open rooms, that sort of cross over and become one larger environment. They're also adaptable to different, events that they may have, dinner parties and so on. And then you can see the deck, the terrace, that also has a protective trellis element that allows them to enjoy that area more frequently. On the upper level, you have all the private rooms and guest rooms. And then the rooftop has allowed, allowing us to put some mechanical equipment up there, screened, and then, views out towards the south, towards the east, towards the west, the skyline of the city. So these images give you all the materiality of the project. I know you have these in your package, so I'll just go quickly and wait for your questions. And the sectional quality of the project, the understory, again, creating a very resilient environment for our storm surge condition here, and allowing also for outdoor living under the house. You see a greater detail here. And as you know, this is all prescribed by a formula that kind of gives you all the different lower elevations that are allowed. Another section towards the south side of the house and the pool decks. This is always an attractive exhibit. Kind of shows you how we had to compute all the allowable areas. In case you have any questions about these, they're pretty straightforward. In the back, we have to respect these green areas that are provided in the rear yards and in the front yards as well. And then this is the modified front pavilion. It gets a new facade. some of the exhibits to explain some of the waivers that have been recommended for approval. And then this is where Matthew, you'll say a few words about your landscape, and this is where it started with the management of existing plant material. When Matthew finishes his presentation, then we'll open it up for your questions.
You've exceeded your 10 minutes, but how much time would you need?
I can be pretty quick.
2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Okay.
And then Matthew, I need to swear you in.
Oh.
Because you weren't sworn in, you came in late, right? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you'll be giving in this proceeding is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'll set it at 2 minutes.
Hi, Matthew Lewis, 7294 Northwest First Court in Miami. Thanks for having us here today. It's certainly a great project. You know, I think what's interesting about the site, you know, being a double lot and having the architecture being as it is, well designed as Reynaldo did it, it was really important for us to keep as many of the trees, although there are not any trees on site. We kept many of the perimeter palm trees because, one, it helps to provide a nice scale in relation to the building, because when we're first starting on this project, we really think about the trees as part of the architecture. So it was important for us to really give a large and grand scale to the palms that were existing to the site. And then as far as the landscape goes, the city, urban forestry doesn't really count, they don't count palms towards our calculation for the landscape, which is fine, but in this case, we did bring in about 30 to 40 palms, again, to bring that scale to help kind of reinforce the house to the ground by having these 25 and 30 foot clear trunk palms. However, from a tree perspective, as you saw in one of the earlier renderings, along the street we're indicating several large gumbo limbo trees, and then throughout the site we're actually bringing in over 150 native South Florida trees, which are green buttonwoods, Jamaica capers, Simpson stoppers, bay rums, that sort of thing. And by doing that with the large trees and those native understory trees, we really start to infill the site with native planting, which from the perspective of the environment and sustainability, what we really see in projects like this is we really see the return of birds and bees and butterflies and all things that create the ecosystem, not just the building and the people using it. So I'll leave it at that.
Great. Thank you, Matthew. That concludes our presentation, and we're available for your questions.
Thank you very much. Are there any other members of the public wishing to speak? See no one here, online.
No one online?
Excellent. Okay, I'm now going
Reynaldo somehow online as well. I don't know how, but you're here. I don't know if you need.
I'm now going to close the public portion, open it up to the board for discussion. Sam?
I concur with staff's analysis that special conditions and circumstances exist which are peculiar to the land structure or building involved, i.e. the existence of this structure, which would, absent the grant of the variance, would otherwise need to be demolished, and that these circumstances aren't applicable to other land structures or buildings in the same zoning district. And I also concur with their note that the granting of the variance would be in harmony with the general intent and purpose of these land development regulations, and that such variance would not be injurious to the area involved or otherwise detrimental to public welfare, and note the absence of any objection from the neighboring property owners. And so, based on that, I intend to vote in favor of the grant of the variance and would urge the other members of the board to do so as well.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Variance says.
Anyone else want to comment?
I think, Reynaldo, you always do bring good, thoughtful designs, and I appreciate, the understory. When we review these projects, it's hard to think of resiliency when there is such luxury, but I know you're doing the best. My one question, and maybe you can help me feel better about it, is why are you requesting to keep the existing structure? My thought is, I'll tell you where I'm coming from on this, is that, the zoning has changed and we're taking advantage of that with height, with the new regulations, but holding on to that existing structure allows you to have, a building where you wouldn't otherwise be able to build if you weren't maintaining it. And so why do you feel like, how are you justifying the need for that?
So thank you, Shona. So I think the justification for me was clear because there's a caretaker that lives on site right now that takes care of the whole property for the owners. And the intention is to leave him in place. And then, the fact that there's 3 parking spaces underneath is probably more than what we need. We probably just need a couple of cars there. So it was there, and the code allows us to ask, for this variance on that element. It's far to the east side of the property, so it's really not obstructive, to the new construction. So again, it was a client request programmatically. It's important that they keep that as a caretaker's home. It has like a small apartment upstairs for the caretaker and his family. So that's the main reason. We sort of defaced it and brought the new architecture into context with the house, and that's what you see in the renderings.
Well, I have to say, Ronaldo, I really like this house. It's amazing to me how big it is, but how kind of light it feels. It feels like it's floating. It feels, I mean, I absolutely love the column and the asymmetry of it all. So anyway, I just wanted to say that I think it's beautiful.
Thank you.
Is the, I agree, it feels sort of dreamy. I mean, this is a dream house. The stone that you've selected, it's very unique. Is it pretty set, or is this just a general?
If you
I'll
can
go off
show
the mic
us
for a
your
second and show
style.
you the material for a second.
Okay. You need to speak into the microphone.
I'm sorry.
Just move over.
There's no way to detach this device. Okay.
It's okay. It's all good.
It's all good. So indeed, this is the porcelain here. You see a larger image of the larger scale slab. Okay. So the client wanted something bluish. Blue is their favorite color, and that's why you see it represented like that in both the renderings and in these samples here. So we basically have 3 stones, and you kind of see them represented here, although this is more of a porcelain product. This is the vertical panels. As you can see, it's more of a copper finish on it, and it'll have these perforations. And then our typical ipe for the underside of some of the canopies, some draping screens that we're providing in a side stair, and then the mechanical equipment enclosure. So that's kind of the sampling that you see here, and of course the pervious paver that Matthew has selected for the project that brings warmth, and it also is pervious. Does that answer your question about the stone?
So the one that we keep seeing, it's that one that's a little bit bluish.
This one's the blue one.
The main sort of
This one-
highlight.
this
Yeah.
one right here, yeah.
Okay, nice.
For the applicant. So we have a condition in here, the final design details and color selection of the exterior blue-like stone cladding shall be submitted in a manner to be reviewed and approved by staff. Is that, so it's not stone, it's gonna be porcelain tile?
It's a porcelain.
Okay, so
yes.
I just wanna clarify so that we don't run into issues in permitting, that the order says stone, they come in and it's porcelain tile that they then run into issues.
Yes.
So can you clarify?
These are definitely the materials you're going to use?
Yes.
Okay, I mean, I think that could just be materials as presented to
Okay.
DRB.
Yeah. And we know we have to bring the material palette to you during the final permitting as well.
I just want to make, so I would basically strike the word stone, so that gives us the option to consider the porcelain or the other.
Yeah,
the other material.
stone-like porcelain.
Yeah, right.
For durability. I mean, the
Stone, or
technology is just
stone-like,
amazing.
yeah.
Yes.
What is the material used for the covering of the mechanical area?
So this is an aluminum screening system. So, at the scale that it will be used on the rooftop, because primarily the rooftop is where we have the equipment. This is, it becomes very opaque, but it allows for ventilation to come through as well. So it's an innovative way of screening the equipment that we thought we'd like to introduce.
Where's that bubble the white, yeah,
Okay,
where's that
so
used?
that is these vertical elements that you see in the facade. If we go back to the rendering on the screen, it's the vertical copperish looking vertical elements in the facade.
Oh, okay.
And you see a
Oh,
scale
oh, oh, yeah.
version of that here, simulated, to scale.
Thank you.
So I agree with, I think this is a fantastic design, and I understand, I also am supportive of the variance and understand why that structure would need to be retained, and I also appreciate that there's some good landscaping covering, what would otherwise be a solid. It seems like in the existing condition, there's a wall, and then there's stuff in front of the wall, and so it doesn't have a sort of overbearing effect, and that you're gonna be reproducing that, continuing that as well. So I'm in support of the variance. And then in regards to the waivers, can you just show us, just to be thorough, what the first waiver that exceeds the 60 feet in length? Because staff had said that the design,
East elevation.
it
Yeah,
breaks up the
so-
elevation to
yeah,
meet
so
the intent.
we'll
Do you
show
have
you-
a good rendering or drawing or?
So first, let me show it to you in this image here. You can see we do have a bowling alley, for Friday nights. Okay, Friday night bowling. So you see that linear piece that sticks out, and you see the articulation of that. And then there's a distancing. We sort of created a space in between the main house and that element as it kind of protrudes out. And I think it what we calculated, it sort of meets the intent of kind of breaking up the side facade and creating those green areas that we have to create by formula in Miami Beach. Let me show you what it looks like in 3D, right? So in 3D, we have a vignette that we did here. Did we take that out of the presentation? Excuse. This seems to be at the end. Oh, there it is. I didn't click enough. So you kind of see the way the massing kind of breaks up. And all of this, of course, is layered with Matthew's beautiful, plant material. So it really softens that facade. This is sort of the east and north facade of the project.
And so the section that's closest to us, that's the bowling alley, and then there's a sort of a square next to it, and then there's a recess.
Yeah, so we have a panel of stone at the end facade, and then, it kind of transitions to the side. We have to service the sort of the end of the bowling alley in case something mechanically goes wrong, and that's sort of that breezeway that gives you access to that. But it's also elevated as part of the understory strategy.
Thank you. So I understand this waiver. I think you did a good job of expressing the intent of the code. The one waiver that I'm not convinced is a hardship has to relate to the carport. I know that carports aren't necessarily something that we often have or encourage or what. I was also under the impression that a carport has to be attached to a structure. It just can't be freestanding.
Just showing the site plan.
The code has a requirement for carports when you're encroaching into the front setback. This is not encroaching into the front setback, so that requirement doesn't necessarily apply here. This would be considered essentially part of the main structure. So the main structure requirements would apply. So that structure can be there. There's no code restriction on building that structure at that location. The requirement is for understory homes that the parking be located underneath the understory. So that's why they need the waiver. If this were just a pergola or some other structure that wasn't used for parking, it could be located there.
And I think my thought, is this really a hardship? You have this very large double lot. You have, I counted parking spaces for 17 cars. You have an enormous driveway. And now you're asking to convert a part of the open green space to more driveway. Granted, it's pervious surface. And then we're planting a carport in the property to park. I don't see how, I just don't see how this is a hardship, which seems to be the criteria. I mean, there seems to be plenty of driveway space to park the car. Why is this necessary? And I also don't think I just don't think it's very nice to have a carport in the middle of an elegant Miami Beach home.
Yes. I wouldn't disagree with that. What we did is we put it on the side, so it's really on the shadow of the house behind all these huge trees. Now, obviously, that came as a functional requirement from the client, because they have this Mercedes-Benz oversized van that they use, and I wasn't gonna tell them that they needed to sell the van, you know? Obviously, the understory strategy limits the height of the understory, you know, so that the house doesn't get too bulked up, right? So only cars could go in there. This van wouldn't fit. It would have been beautiful for the van to just sort of disappear in sort of in the shadow of the understory. So we did a very fragile, clean, minimalist canopy structure, you know, so that they could park their van and they could exit. You know, there's like a service entrance that gives you direct access from the upper level down adjacent to this. So it's primarily, you know, sort of, let's say, taking the kids to school in the morning, that kind of activity. We did carve a very narrow pathway that is also in crushed coquina, that sort of is not more paving, but is something that is more of the landscape environment. So when we explore it in 3 dimensions with all the landscaping, really, it's not really there. You know, it's, you know, I'm delighted that it disappears, you know.
Can you bring it up on the screen, please?
So,
There's I think.
so I have this site plan on the screen, and I wish,
Yeah, it's hard to see.
Rogelio, we need to put in an order for Bluebeam, you know. What Bluebeam does, it allows us to do dynamic zooms. And that's why this sort of Adobe thing here is kind of awkward. I can't zoom into this, but if you see this exhibit is created to kind of show you the scale of the van, the scale of the minimal canopy, and the way it's sort of tucked back in the back, and it really is sort of behind the greenery that you see in the landscape site plan.
I guess my objection is, you know, again, there's so much driveway. Why is this even necessary to sacrifice
So
open space?
we are removing it from the front yard. Like right now, in the existing condition, they have no other option but to park this wonderful van in the front yard, right? So this kind of disappears the van to the side, is more discreet. And, you know, I mean, obviously, nobody wants to celebrate this van. It is on the side, and there's a lot of greenery around there. Let me see if I can show
And
you.
I take it the van doesn't fit into the parking garage at the front?
It doesn't.
It's too
no,
high?
No, yeah, it's not high enough. These are these sort of oversized Mercedes-Benz vans that are huge but very comfortable.
That accommodate a lot of car seats.
Yes.
You can get 2 kids in a car.
You know, it's like the
Yes.
children, the
car
soccer
seats.
practice.
They travel
you know,
together a
They've
lot,
gotten
you
used
know,
to it,
so,
and they really would enjoy
I'm not saying
having
don't
it.
have the van.
I know.
I'm just saying you've got an enormous amount of driveway. Why are you adding more driveway?
We wouldn't want to put it in the front yard, you know, so we put it on the side.
Of course not. Not in the front yard.
Not in the front yard, but that's the only other option.
And it's not a paved surface leading to it. It's the coquina, that pebbly thing that I have in my yard that's really porous. So reminiscent of old Miami Beach, not a terrible driveway. So it's just, you know, when you have something like this and the children enjoy it and their 10 friends enjoy it, picking them up from soccer practice is a hard thing because there's no other place. We can't put it in the understory. We can't put it in the retained guest house. So we're doing the best we can. Ronaldo's certainly not proud of it, but he's
Oh, yes,
he,
I am.
he
Come
was
on.
tasked with it, and he has to do it. And he's done what he can do to make it modest and not in the way.
If you see, could I point with this? Does it have a pointer? Yes, it does. Okay. So if, let me see, because this is the screen that you're seeing here. Does it point? Doesn't point to the screen. So you could see over here the plants, the trees, the significant palm that it's right around the canopy. So it really, I mean, you cannot even see the roof of the canopy of the, where we're storing the van. So it's kind of like a magic trick we did here.
I mean, if I'm in the minority, I'm in the minority. I would think that in, you know, this double lot, there'd be a better solution, but
The only other solution would be to be able to carve more in the understory, so then I could kind of have like a mini, kind of
Right.
like basement, half basement. But we don't want to do that in Water World
Can't do
because we
that.
accumulate
Can't
water.
Can't do that.
Water World is right.
This
I mean,
design is
yeah,
so
yeah, it's so perfect.
You know, so, I mean, the regulation allows us to kind of level off things and,
Yeah.
but we're trying to keep the water from accumulating, so that's.
It's just in general a hard sell to say I have a 62,000 square foot lot and there's some hardships because of it. That's sort of my point. It's more the principle of, this is really, this is a design decision. This is, not really a problem. And it's a shame that you're covering up open space. But again, if I'm in the minority, if this is, this is not a hill I'm going to die on. But I just also don't want to see carports in people's yards from this point forward for every house that comes up that has an understory, because it goes, the whole point I think of the understory is to have more open space and less parking space. And that's, it goes against the intent of what these codes and regulations are for and what we're trying to promote. So that is just the point that I wanted to make publicly moving forward.
So given, I'm inclined to make a motion, but given the resistance I'm hearing, do you suggest that we take up the variances, variance 1, variance number 2 separately?
Cannot even see the roof from anywhere.
Yes, yes, because of the voting requirements. So the design with the waivers would be a motion and the variance approval.
We
also
would start
put
with,
in-
we would start with the design
Design.
and waivers, okay.
And also the condition, the clarification or change that instead of stone, it would be the blue porcelain or the
Right.
porcelain tile for the frontage design.
Yeah, so look, as someone that has to deal with this very complicated resiliency code, which is a work of art, I tell you, this shouldn't be a hardship. We shouldn't have to ask. It should be allowed, because we live in the tropics in a very, hot and humid, and the sun is very active. So it's nice to be able to shade this van and not just leave it exposed, right? So I don't know if if that canopy is what creates the request, that the fact that there's a structured,
What about two things? What about if we make the surface, like porous, just like the drive leading to it? Like you're saying, it's taking up open space. I hear you. So what about if there's a concrete surface that it parks upon? Why can't it be more porous in nature?
yeah, so,
Well, and I don't know the materials. You said it
It
was
already is
coquina.
porous.
Is that,
yeah, I think.
It's already labeled as porous on the plan.
yeah.
Right, so we already have that, so
Yeah.
this is
What
really
about a green roof then?
minimum footprint.
I mean, I think that just adds to the structure of the carpet. You know what? Listen, as I said, they could just park the van on the driveway, like everybody else who has a van does.
Where in the driveway would
You
you
know,
park?
that's why I'm saying that this is not really a problem. This is not a real problem.
Right.
So, but again, if I don't want to, you did with this resiliency code, you managed to design a beautiful home that I'm sure they're going to be thrilled by. I just needed to make that point.
Yeah,
They,
yeah, understood.
it is a waiver, so it's not a variance. They would still, even if they don't build a carport, they would still need the waiver because the waiver is for parking outside of the front yard,
Outside of the understory?
outside of the understory.
Oh, so you need a waiver, like, so not only does it have to be designed to have the cars under it, the cars do actually have to park underneath it.
Right.
Not just
Yeah.
out, and
Yeah.
despite the presence of the driveway.
Yeah,
Correct.
so we couldn't have this.
The driveway is supposed to be to drive on, not to,
Not to
Not to
park
park.
on.
Not the park on.
Okay, okay.
with an understory. If you had a conventional home, you could
Right.
park there. But the goal of the understory is to have all the parking hidden underneath the home so that that's not visible from the public right
Right,
of way.
again, to increase the open space, the
Mm-hmm.
permeability, and, right,
Correct.
so.
You know, as one board member, I don't take exception to the carport. I can understand the, although not a hardship, I understand the difficulty of the children, the van not going in the understory because of height, and having it shielded from the sun, all of that understood. Whether that qualifies as a hardship, a lot of us don't have that, and we still transport children and the like. However, with a lot this big, you would think that eventually we would have projects coming to us, and even with smaller lots, where mechanical equipment is not on the rooftop of a structure, of a home, or, you know, especially in a home with a lot this size, and yet we are allowing it because the code allows it. So I think that would have been more of an issue for me.
Okay, let's start with the design inclusive of waivers, which I move to approve.
Second.
And that includes modifying the condition for stone to be stone-like or porcelain cladding.
Yes.
Yes.
Or as shown during the meeting.
As shown,
Right.
yeah. Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Sheldon. I believe we have a second by Mr. Diffenderfer. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion passes.
So I now move to approve variance number 1.
I think you can approve
You
do
can do
both if you would like.
Well, I don't know if there are some that are supportive of one variance but not the other. People are shaking their heads, so let's do them both. I move to approve both of the requested variances.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Sheldon, second by Mr. Diffenderfer. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Nope. Motion passes.
Great. Thank you all very much. Take care. All right.
Thank you.
Move to adjourn?
If you may, may I make one quick announcement?
Of course.
So this is Giselle's last meeting with us here on the Design Review Board. I want to thank her very much for all of her assistance. She made my transition from the planning board here easy. And her expertise on the code, and specifically the single-family section, is unbelievable. The single-family section is a tough one, so she's made my transition easier. And she's going to be going to work on the planning board with Michael Belush, so to keep things interesting, changing up her purview. And we're going to be working with Alejandro Garavito, who I think is somewhere back here, if you can say hello. Alejandro. And so you'll see him on the dais at the next meeting on October 1st. So thank you, Giselle, and welcome, Alejandro.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do I have a second to my motion to adjourn?
No, we have to stay. I'm kidding.
Second. All
Okay.
approved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.